Dr. Will B, let's talk about inflammation. Now, what are some of the signs and symptoms of inflammation that you think people are missing?
Missing. Well, so there's the stuff that is quite obvious and you can't miss it, right? Like
Hmm.
if you have a swollen, red, tender knee or wrist, it's pretty clearly inflamed.
Hmm.
But there's the other elements that can creep up on people and they may not realize that it's inflammation. So, I would argue that when your skin is breaking out, when you have poor sleep, I would actually argue probably the number one symptom, Rupi. I'd be curious to hear what you think about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
I think the number one symptom of inflammation is fatigue.
Yes, yes.
That your energy level dips.
Uh-huh.
And those can be fluctuations that occur during the course of like a 24-hour cycle. So,
Hmm.
for example, many people they have, a poor lunch
Hmm.
and then they get tired at 3 in the afternoon
Mm.
and they blame it on sugar
Mm.
and a sugar crash. But I actually think that's postprandial inflammation,
Yeah,
inflammation after a meal.
yeah.
Um, or you have a drink, right? And like you have alcohol and you feel pretty good for an hour and then you just are wrecked.
Mm.
Or you drink a lot and then you wake up the next day and you're hungover. And what is that? And like people have like sort of commonly attributed that to dehydration,
Dehydration.
right? But
Yeah.
if that was dehydration, then like you could drink an electrolyte beverage, rehydrate yourself, you would feel totally fine. Yet
Absolutely.
it takes 24 hours
Yeah.
to really get over it. And I'm quite convinced based upon what I've seen so far that what's happening there is you have really disrupted your gut microbiome
Mm.
with alcohol,
Mm.
which of course destroys bacteria. And in disrupting your gut microbiome, you
Mm.
break down your gut barrier and you have created inflammation, which we can talk more about those steps. But
Yeah.
that's the key that people need to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think fatigue, this is the unfortunate thing about inflammation, that the symptoms are very vague and
Yeah.
they can be explained in some ways by other pathology and other mechanisms. But the ones that I certainly recognize there are skin breakouts, fatigue, random pain as well. So generalized pain. And obviously the macro manifestations of inflammation as well. If people are hearing this sort of word and just thinking to themselves, yeah, I get this inflammation, and like most of the supplements in the supermarkets are telling me that this is anti-inflammatory or these foods are anti-inflammatory. What does that actually mean? How would you explain that to someone either in clinic or on social media who's asking you, okay, what is inflammation?
Sure. So we have to start by acknowledging that this word that in our culture has taken on negative connotations like, hey, inflammation, that's bad,
Mm,
right? Well, you and I wouldn't be here without inflammation,
mm,
right? Within our own lives or predating going all the way back, human evolution through the years, where basically acute inflammation is what allows us to address infections
mhm,
and allows us to heal from bodily injury. And those were, for 99.99% of human history, the two top causes of death that existed. You either were going to get hurt and not be able to recover, or you were going to get an infection, and that's what's going to get you. Right. And so our immune system was set up to defend against that.
mhm,
And that's acute inflammation. When your immune system reacts and responds to a legitimate threat,
mhm.
that's acute inflammation. Where we are today is not acute inflammation. We have crossed over into a new breed where this is chronic inflammation
Mhm.
and it's low grade. It's not quite as intense as what you get when you're fighting an infection.
Mm.
But it's there 24 hours a day, smoldering like a fire that just never goes out.
Yeah.
And it's been activated by our lifestyle. So the reason why is because we have changed so much. We as humans we're interesting because we have the ability to change and shape our environment. And we're really the only life on this planet that
Yeah.
has the ability to do that. And by reshaping our environment, we can actually sort of change our environment to a point where we're actually causing harm to ourselves.
Mm.
And so if you think about like where we were and where we are, it's been a really insane change that's taken place in terms of the way that we live over the course of a very brief period of time.
Yeah, I'm really glad you started by explaining the benefits of inflammation because, the fact that we're having this conversation in the middle of LA, surrounded by environmental pollutants, exposing ourselves to different microbes and viruses that could cause issues, could cause sepsis, could cause infections. The very fact that we're able to survive and thrive is because of inflammation, is because inflammation is the language of your immune system. It's fighting off these pathogens and it's signaling amongst our immune system as well. And we're constantly utilizing inflammation in a good way. But like you said, because of this change in our modern lifestyles, this simmering inflammation in the background that should have never really have been there, it's only really meant to be there in certain places. This is what is leading to the manifestation of disease. And so when we think about this change in our lifestyles and how we've evolved, what do you think are the sort of big levers that are pushing inflammation to this smoldering level that are leading to some of the issues that we'll talk about a little bit
Well, I
later?
guess in order to lead into answering that question, um, what is it about chronic inflammation? If there's no infection,
Yeah.
what is your immune system reacting to,
Mm.
right? And we have to start by understanding that inflammation is what occurs when your immune system gets activated in response to a threat. That threat could be real, like an infection, or you hurt yourself. That threat could be fake,
Hmm.
such as something in your diet.
Hmm.
And so, what I would propose for the listeners as we dive into this conversation about inflammation is a framework of how our body defends itself.
Okay.
There's three parts.
Okay.
All right. So, I guess if it's okay, we'll circle back to your
Let's
question.
do let's do that.
All
Yeah.
right. So, there's three parts to how our body defends itself. And I would actually argue that inflammation is number three. The immune system is number three.
Mhm.
So, first is actually our gut microbiome.
Okay.
Our gut microbiome lives inside of our intestines. There's 38 trillion microbes, and they are constantly at work, basically like doing what they can to support our health. And that includes suppressing pathogens. And we know that this is true because if you knock out the microbiome, such as by taking antibiotics, you expose yourself to increased risk of infection,
Hmm.
right? So those infections that come on as a response, like a classic is C. diff,
Hmm.
C. diff colitis,
Yeah.
which we can talk more about in a moment. But basically, C. diff, you already had it. That's not a new thing for your body. It was already there.
Mm.
And it was existing within this harmonious microbiome where the C. diff has no power.
Mm.
And then you take away the harmony, you destroy the microbes, and you create this opportunity where the C. diff rises up. And now it creates a mess
Mm.
and you're sick. And so the first layer of defenses is actually our microbiome.
Hmm.
And the second layer of defenses is actually our gut barrier.
Okay.
So our body was created, like, I'll speak for myself. As a medical doctor, I'd be curious to hear how you feel about this.
Sure.
The more that I learn about the body, the more that I'm like, it makes so much sense.
Yeah. I always like to think about the body and what I learned through this whole journey of nutritional medicine through the lens of evolution and just how like incredible it is that we've got to this point and the reasons why we have adapted, to even taking your earlier point, this symbiotic relationship with foreigners in our body and the fact that we have 38 trillion of them just in our gut is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And it's
And we
it
need them.
yeah, we need them,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's just like there is a purpose for everything
Yeah.
in our body and there is a reason why we're here like with our bodies today and it's just magical to think about it through that lens and just like how smart evolution has been.
Evolution is way smarter than we are as people. And it's even smarter than AI is because basically it's like long form
Oh
intelligence
yeah.
that has led us to where we are today. And I would actually argue that all the things that we're talking about right now are like billions of years of development,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and you can upend them real quick with like some crazy human ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So the microbiome is our first layer of defense. The second layer of defense is actually our gut barrier.
Mhm.
So it turns out that our entire intestine, which is about 25 feet long, so like 8 meters long, it has this layer, this lining that is meant to act like a filter.
Mhm.
where you let the good stuff in
Mhm.
and you keep the bad stuff out. And we call that the gut barrier.
Mhm.
And when you hear people talk about something like, for example, leaky gut,
Mhm.
okay, I used to like scoff so hard at this idea. And there's definitely some stuff on the internet that is frankly not true.
For sure. Yeah.
But where I am now is the general principle that the breakdown of our gut barrier is causing problems, which some people call leaky gut, and I might call increased intestinal permeability.
Sure. Yeah.
When this wall that was meant to defend us and keep the stuff out that's not supposed to get in, when it breaks down, there are serious problems.
Yeah. Can I tell you a little side story?
Please.
Not to derail you, but I concur with this idea of the leaky gut, right? So when
Yeah.
I had my own illness, going back like 15 years ago now, my mum, who's not a medical doctor, took me to see a naturopath, and it was during my journey as a patient, right? I'd seen all the cardiologists, and they were suggesting to me that I should have an ablation to fix my atrial fibrillation that was paroxysmal. My mum was very anti against this. She's sort of Ayurvedic principles, typical Indian mum. So to appease her, I remember being led around to all these naturopaths, and I was just a freshly newly minted doctor, right? And so when this naturopath started talking to me about how I may have a leaky gut and I need to ensure that my leaky gut is fixed through doing very simple things like increasing fiber and all that kind of stuff, I remember arrogantly turning around to this person and just saying, I've been through medical school for 6 years. I've never heard the term leaky gut. I think this is complete BS. And now, honestly, I shudder at that.
You want to
I
apologize.
really want to apologize.
This is the apology
Yeah,
right
this is the
now.
apology right here. About that scenario, because I think, particularly in medicine, and I'd be curious to know your experience with this. I think we have sort of this arrogance around knowing everything, and
Yeah.
this EBM approach that trumps everything else. And I think the more I learn about the body and the evolution of the body, and the more I learn about traditional wisdom, I have a much greater appreciation, and I'm actually humbled by a lot of these things that I used to think earlier were just BS. So
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, sidebar there on your point
Yeah, well,
about leaky
quick
gut.
comment on that, and then we'll get back to the defense systems. But I agree with you, and I think that so I have a background I have a master's degree in clinical investigation that I got at Northwestern, and so I come from this background. It's very academic, very evidence-based medicine,
Yeah.
and yet the more that I learn, the more that I understand that these traditional medical approaches, they have 5,000 years. Ayurvedic has 5,000 years of experience.
Yeah.
And so what they're describing is what they learned through 5,000 years of experience.
Yeah.
Now, we might roll in with our clinical trials and say, well, this is the gold standard, right? And the problem is that that we should not be so quick to dismiss 5,000 years of experience based upon whether or not there's a clinical trial or not.
Yeah, yeah. And even in the nutrition world, there's a theological reason as to why beans and grains are found in so many different cultures worldwide. Is because their trials and their experimentations about what works to ensure that we get enough protein in our diet has been done time and time again at different parts of the continent, different parts of the world. So there is a lot of wisdom, even in the simple things like recipes, that we should be a lot more appreciative of. So I'm so glad, someone who went to Northwestern and did your masters in that, has come around to this idea as well. So
I think there's a humility to it all, right?
Absolutely.
You start to realize that you can't explain everything through evidence-based
sure,
medicine. And
yeah.
ultimately, I think that working with patients is really helpful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, your job is to guide them to outcomes, and you realize that there's not perfect studies for every single thing that you're going to do. You're guided by the research, but at the end of the day, you still need to be prepared to adapt to the individual person because of the bio-individuality.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah.
So
let's bring it back to the defenses. Bring it back to gut barrier. So we're going to be going and meandering a lot, I think, today. So.
Yeah. So the key here is that what I'm proposing is that there's these three parts, which is the gut microbiome, the gut barrier, And finally, the immune system. The immune system sits on the other side of the gut barrier. So you have to actually cross into the body to get access to the immune system.
Just before we go into the immune system, sorry, can we double click on the gut barrier? So when you say the gut barrier, are you just talking about that sort of final layer where you've got the mucin layer and then you've got the different sort of gateways in between gut cells? Or are you also sort of incorporating the acidity in the stomach and other sort of elements like bile acids along the way? Or when you think about gut barrier, you think about the distal part of it?
So the part that I'm referring to is really the epithelial layer that's covered in mucin layer.
Okay.
So, and for the listeners at home, let me make an analogy to sort of bring this all together.
Yeah.
Imagine that we have a castle, right? And what's inside of that castle is precious. It's you. You're the king or queen.
Yeah.
And we want to protect you and keep you alive and well. So what we do is this castle has a wall. That's the epithelial layer, right? And the epithelial layer is held together by these proteins that are called tight junctions. That's like the cement that holds the bricks together, okay? And then outside of the castle, we also have a moat. So the moat is this physical barrier that's hard to get through, and it's a mess. And who even knows? If it was my moat, there's alligators in there, right? I'd make it real cool. Maybe some sharks that have laser cannons. Like, who even knows what I'd have in my moat? But like the point though is that the moat is outside of the castle, and it's this physical barrier that also exists. That's the same way that our body is set up. The gut barrier has a wall, like a castle wall, and has a mucus layer. That's this thick thing that's that includes these proteins that are antimicrobial, that is also intended to defend us. And these two parts work in concert. And it's interesting, Rupi, because the body is constantly repairing and renewing this. So they don't just build the wall and then leave it and allow it to decay. They have an entire team that's working constantly to restore the wall. Every 3 to 5 days, you get a brand new gut barrier.
Oh, wow.
There is no other part of your body that turns over cells as quickly and renews as quickly as your gut microbiome. So we hear about like how resilient the liver is. And what I'm saying to you is this is turning over way quicker than the liver does. So brand new every 3 to 5 days. And who are the custodians? Who are the ones that are helping to work on the gut barrier? Repairing it, restoring it, keeping it fresh, keeping it strong. Those are the gut microbes that live outside the castle wall. This is their job. They exist to basically build up this wall. Now, if you like, we have a gate, and that gate is going to allow stuff in that we want.
Yeah.
And when something comes to the gate that we don't like, we close the gate. But if the wall is broken, if the wall has holes, if the wall is not standing strong the way it should be, then when that thing that comes to the gate that we don't want to get in, it'll find a way to get in.
I love that analogy. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. Please do. Please do.
I'll reference you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So anyway, and then if like this invading, barbarian horde comes to our castle wall, right, and happens to get through the castle wall, which I don't want that to be the case. I want to build up those microbes and allow those microbes to have a strong castle wall for me because that's going to protect my body. But if the barbarian horde manages to get through the castle wall, then they're going to come into contact with the third defense system, which is the most powerful defense system, which is our immune system.
Okay.
And the immune system is like our army. And I would break it into two major units in the immune system. So the first is the innate immune system. And the innate immune system is pre-programmed. And these are like the simple soldiers that like, they just do what they're told. They're not really thinking, and they're just going to go and do their thing, right? And the innate immune system, actually, it's very interesting, Rupi. I would actually argue that our innate immune system is actually at least 1 billion years old.
1 billion years old?
1 billion years old.
Wow.
Because it goes literally all the way back.
Okay.
So our immune cells are responding to things that evolved 1 billion years ago in the microbes. Because there was a very long period of time where the world was microbes.
Gotcha.
And there was no multicellular life. There was, let alone humans. We were way not even close to being around yet.
Absolutely, yeah.
And these battles that were occurring in ecosystems as microbes were trying and fighting to emerge created the framework that like we're literally talking about right now. Like these were like the precursors to what we're talking about now, and everything was in response to something else. And so that like billion-year build is what ultimately led to our immune system that is quite automated. So like it's not intelligent, it can't think, it can react.
Yeah.
It's like robots that are pre-programmed. And what they're taught to really react to, the thing that really like is the sort of like, I guess let me put it this way. Think about like if you were to say, what is your number one movie villain of all time?
Number one
Who are
movie
you going with?
villain.
Yeah, give it to me.
I'd probably say Al Pacino in Scarface, which is a weird villain to have because he was
Whoa.
like the sort of protagonist of that movie, but at the same time he was a villain.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I've been thinking a lot about old movies, probably because I'm in LA right now and I think I had a conversation about some of my favorite movies, but I think Al Pacino in Scarface was the villain in a way.
Okay. Well, cool. That was more complicated than I expected.
I mean, a simple villain, I
me-
don't know.
Let me get us back on track here, which is I'm gonna keep it super simple. I'll play my theme song.
Okay.
Bum 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 bum.
Okay, fine.
Right?
We're gonna go with
So
Darth Vader.
Yeah. So Darth Vader, like he rolls in, you're like, yo,
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with that guy, right? And I realize, like, I'm kind of a Darth Vader fan. He redeemed himself in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
I've been watching
Well,
this
there you
with
go.
my
It's
kids.
complicated as well.
It's complicated. But at a minimum, though, he had a big run as being like the classic movie villain.
Yeah.
Classic movie villain theme song, right? All right. So our movie villain for what we're talking about is something called lipopolysaccharide. And lipopolysaccharide is actually the armor that exists on the outside of pathogenic bacteria. These bacteria like E. coli, they have this lipopolysaccharide surrounding it on the outer shell. It's like armor protecting it. And so what happened is that our immune system evolved to recognize that. If that shows up, we go to war.
Gotcha.
Right? If that shows up, we know that's not a good guy and we got to fight it. So the problem is that E. coli or these other bacteria that have this lipopolysaccharide armor, they exist naturally in our microbiome. And they're not really a problem when they're just there. If you could keep them contained within your microbiome, they're fine. They become a problem when that wall starts breaking down. Because when you start to have weakness in the wall, they're like rats.
It's going to sound horrible. Feel
free to edit that out.
No, it's very dramatic, but it has an
apologize
effect.
for embarrassing myself, but I am a medical doctor who just made a rat noise on a podcast.
But then, no one's ever going to forget that.
Right,
So this
fair
is
enough.
staying in.
All right. Anyway, so I was thinking of what was the movie? All right, never mind. Forget that. So these rats, they find the hole. They find the hole and they're able to sneak in. And when they come in, now the immune system, it has no choice. It's pre-programmed. That's its age-old enemy.
Yeah.
For 1 billion years, we're going to war. And so the problem that we really have with chronic inflammation is that the weakness of our gut microbiome has led us to a scenario where when the gut barrier needs to be repaired and restored every 3 to 5 days, we're not doing an adequate job of doing that. And so a weak gut wall leaves it open so that these bacteria that shouldn't be causing trouble for us are in fact causing trouble because they're sneaking across. And now you have an immune system. This army is going to war to attack these these lipopolysaccharide bacteria. And the activation of the military, there's consequences. Because like you can't have, people like if you live in this city, imagine you live within the walls of this castle. I mean, you can't have walk to work and people are like killing each other and you're going to act like it's nothing and it doesn't change anything about the way that you live, right? Like this inflammation has consequences. It causes a long-term organ damage. it causes long-term organ dysfunction and ultimately leads to the manifestation of disease. And many of the chronic diseases that we're fighting against today are the result of chronic inflammation. But what I'm saying is, when you hear chronic inflammation, don't just think about the immune system.
Yeah.
When you hear chronic inflammation, I want you thinking immediately about the gut microbiome,
Yeah.
the gut barrier, and the immune system, because they rise and they fall together.
So within this picture, and this is great, and I think people are going to recognize the analogies that you've used, as well as the explanation of the different defense systems, and just breaking it down like that, I think is super clear for folks. When we think about the rise in inflammation as a result of the breakdown of these different systems, you mentioned it and alluded to it just then. What are the consequences of this downstream? What are the things that, I mean, we talked about symptoms a little bit earlier, and feel free to refresh them if you like, but what are the other things that could be related to this excess in inflammation?
Right. So when you have activation of the immune system and chronic inflammation, yes, like there's the acute symptoms. Fatigue is possible. It may affect your sleep. It may affect your ability to focus. That's a little bit different than fatigue. It may affect your mood in a negative way. It also, we discussed skin. There's GI effects. So it could cause bloating or constipation, diarrhea, digestive discomfort, sensitivity of the gut, which is like a hallmark of irritable bowel syndrome. It could manifest with allergic diseases, where your body starts reacting to things that it's not supposed to. So when it's an allergic disease, you're reacting to something that's foreign to your body. So that could be like pollen, but it could also be food. Or it could manifest with autoimmune disease. And autoimmune disease is where your body is reacting against itself. And a confused immune system has, like, it doesn't even know who to fight. It's just fighting everyone. And so then it turns against your own cells, starts attacking them. And now you have the manifestation of rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or multiple sclerosis. And then there's Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. They're an interesting topic because those are what we call inflammatory bowel diseases. And as a gastroenterologist, I've taken care of thousands of people with these conditions. And I used to call them autoimmune. I actually don't call them autoimmune anymore. The reason why is because your immune system is not reacting to your cells. The immune system is not actually attacking your colon. The immune system is attacking your microbiome. So this is like auto microbiome. Yeah, you are attacking your own microbiome. And what you once accepted, right? Because during childhood, we learn that these microbes are our friends. And then the turn happens. Your immune system determines that it's the enemy, that it needs to be taken out. And in the process of going to war against your microbiome, what's stuck in the middle is your colon or your intestines. And so you manifest inflammation as a result of that. So other things. So like, let's talk about metabolism. So inflammation actually affects our blood sugar. Inflammation affects our blood fat, whether that's after a meal or that is sort of like the chronic state of our lipids, like the typical blood work that people get when they go to their doctor. Inflammation affects our ability to feel full. It affects our appetite. Think about this within the context of obesity. But inflammation also affects our ability to gain and lose weight. In other words, we actually shift more towards weight gain as opposed to weight loss. So there's an interesting thing, Rupi, a real double click on that. Hope you don't mind. So it turns out that insulin resistance, which has inflammatory elements, it was actually evolved to protect us.
Oh, really?
Believe it or not.
Okay.
Have you ever heard this theory?
Let's talk about it. No,
Okay.
I don't think I've come across this.
All right. Like, this would make no sense to a modern doctor.
Sure.
Because to us, insulin resistance is type 2 diabetes. And it's a clear problem. And so how could that possibly be evolved for benefit?
I just want to quickly explain what insulin resistance is to the listener. So insulin resistance is where you essentially become resistant to the hormone insulin that's released by the pancreas in response to sugar in your bloodstream. Insulin has a very important role in terms of removing sugar from your bloodstream, putting it into cells where it can be either stored for energy or utilized as energy. And when you have persistent high blood sugar and therefore persistent high levels of insulin in your bloodstream, your cells essentially need a greater dose of insulin to have the same desired effect. Ergo, you become resistant to the dose of insulin, and you need high amounts of insulin to be released from your pancreas. So, and this is a hallmark feature of type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes or metabolic dysfunction.
Metabolic disease, right. And there's examples of insulin resistance that exist prior to the onset of pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes.
Absolutely.
Where like the earliest signal would be if you had blood work done, you could potentially detect insulin resistance, even though you have a totally normal blood sugar.
Totally.
Right? Because your body is now starting to fight against the current.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the point at which it's failing in the fight against that current that you actually develop diabetes.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is one of my bugbears, with modern medicine, because, you could be passed off as normal with a normal HbA1c, but actually, your insulin system is working really hard to keep that blood sugar level down such that it's not detected by those those bloods with less fidelity. So
yeah, well, what you're speaking to is having a more nuanced understanding of the mechanism by which the metabolic disease manifests. And the problem is that the healthcare system has been fixated on the sugar.
Yeah.
And this has spilled into people like, thinking that sugar is always bad, blood sugar, whereas like, for you and I, like we know that blood sugar actually is quite important because that's what feeds our brain. Like, that's the energy source for our brain. Okay. So, but go back to like way before modern times, we existed in a period of food scarcity.
Yeah.
We were way more likely to starve.
Right.
And there's basically no obesity.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it basically didn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it turns out, Rupi, that when you shift away from an optimized body weight, it's always inflammatory. So we see it in the modern world in terms of obesity.
Yeah.
And obesity is clearly associated with inflammation. There is no doubt about this. And when people who are obese lose weight and are moving back towards a more optimized body weight, inflammation goes down. Okay. So, and that is associated with, like, at the same time, insulin resistance improves.
Yeah.
Right. So you're moving towards better metabolic health. Okay. But let's look at the opposite side of that, which is that if you lose too much weight, that's inflammatory too.
Yeah.
And if you take a person who, for example, has an eating disorder with a very low body mass index, and you feed them, inflammation levels go down. This is part of the reason why eating disorders, like there's a number of reasons.
Yeah.
It's not just inflammation, but one of the reasons why eating disorders are very dangerous is your body's an extremist. And so now within that context, you're trying to preserve as much energy as possible. And so what evolved was in response to inflammation. In response to inflammation, your body activates insulin resistance.
That's fascinating.
So you lose too much weight and the body wants to keep you alive.
Yeah.
So it wants to save as much energy as it can.
Yeah.
And so this is what it does, is it activates insulin resistance. So this is the concept is called antagonistic pleiotropy.
Gotcha.
And that's my nerdy way of, you may have noticed, not just the rat thing. There were some other moments where I'm a bit of a nerd.
Yeah. That's so good.
So, okay. So this antagonistic pleiotropy, though, is an interesting thing within the conversation that we're having about inflammation, because basically what this means is that what we evolved to protect us at a different time has become a problem for us during modern times.
Yeah.
And it's not just this, hey, if you have inflammation, you develop insulin resistance. That's not the only example of antagonistic pleiotropy. In fact, if you walk into your supermarket, antagonistic pleiotropy is everywhere. And here's why. So You mentioned sugar,
Uh-huh.
right? And elevated blood sugar. Okay. So, like added sugars, massive part of the American diet, the
Yeah.
British diet,
Mhm.
and destructive to the gut,
Mhm.
destructive to the microbes,
Mhm.
destructive to the gut barrier, and clearly inflammatory. And I could give you a list of about 20 different health conditions that have been associated with the intake of added sugars.
Mhm.
So the point for the listeners at home is that sugar, like, I mean, clearly is problematic, but we have a craving for sugar. There's a reason why we want it so bad, because we need the energy source. We came from a place of starvation. So sugar was actually us finding fuel for our body. But you know what's an even more powerful fuel than that is fat,
Mm.
because you get 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, but you get 9 calories per gram of
Of
fat.
fat. Mm.
So there's a natural desire to consume fat. So there's this innate drive to, like, hey, fatty food tastes good. This is why they're adding, I don't know how you feel about seed oils, but like there's seed oils, but there's saturated fat and
Mm.
there's trans fats. And
Mm.
like the bottom line is that fat tastes good.
Yeah.
And if anyone's denying that, I don't know what to tell you,
Yeah.
but like this is a part of your innate biological drive
Absolutely.
to have that taste good, because your body was pre-programmed for starvation mode.
Yeah.
All right. And the third thing is salt. And so salt was something that like clearly our body needs. It's a an essential mineral, and it was hard to find. So we created an innate drive, because you are more likely to survive if you had this natural desire to find salt. So there we were as cave people out there, like searching for our food, trying to find sugar and fat and salt, right? And then now here we are, and you and I are like, so what am I going to eat today?
Yeah.
I'm on my third meal of the day. I
Yeah.
can go to the supermarket, or I could just run through the fast food, like, drive through,
Totally.
or right. And now there's no absence of food,
Mm.
but that innate drive to continue to consume these things continues to exist. And the problem, Rupi, is that the food industry figured this out
Yeah.
before we did,
Absolutely.
right? Like the medical doctors weren't talking about this. We weren't studying this, but the food scientists were. And they figured out that if you combine 2 out of 3, you create hyperpalatability. So of those 3, sugar, fat, and salt. If you go sugar and fat, sugar and salt, salt and fat. Okay. Basically, we now have a definition for hyperpalatable foods.
Mm.
And hyperpalatable foods lead to overconsumption, because actually the research shows that you never feel full. The satiety hormones get disrupted. You always want more. And there's actually elements of it that if you really dig into like what happens when you eat these foods, it's very, very similar to like biochemically what's happening with people that have drug addiction. So, I mean, the intensity, not the
Yeah.
same clearly,
Sure.
right? But in terms of the biochemical pathways,
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah.
So we get food addiction. So, and now here we are, and we have this Western diet that is prevalent in the United States and slightly less prevalent in the UK, but not that far off.
Oh no.
Right? You guys are
we're
like a few
getting up
years
there.
behind us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, basically, if you look at any curve, it's like the UK is parallel to the US.
Yeah.
You're just a little bit behind.
Mm-hmm.
Australia, a lot of the same issues. EU, a lot of the same issues.
Mm.
Canada, obviously, the same issues. Right? This is the Western diet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's built on these 3 main nutrients. And every single one of them, if you dig in, sugar, disruptive to the microbes, disruptive to the barrier, disruptive to the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Salt, disruptive to the microbes, kills 90% of lactobacillus.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
90% of lactobacillus. Activates the immune cells that are associated with autoimmunity.
Huh.
Yeah. And then last but not least, fat. Well, so okay. So I just want to be clear. Fat is not innately bad,
Sure.
but there are good kinds and there are bad kinds,
Mm-hmm.
or they're like at a minimum. It's like there's a hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And everyone, thankfully, agrees on one thing. This is like the only thing in nutrition that literally everyone agrees.
Yeah.
I used to think everyone agreed that fiber was good, and then I discovered that's not actually true.
I know. There's a lot of people who are really anti-fiber, and I just don't understand
I would
it.
like to have a
just
word
don't-
with them,
Yeah.
but
I
there-
thought that was a universally accepted truth as well, but
I think there's
time
only
is
one
up.
thing that's universally accepted, and that
Okay.
is trans fats.
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Literally.
I think everyone can agree on that.
You kind of got a little sick right there. You okay? Thankfully, you're with a gastroenterologist. I'll take care of you, buddy.
Yeah.
So, but Rupi, if you think about it, like, so
Yeah.
here we are, and 60% of our diet is ultra processed
Uh-huh.
foods, right? And so those ultra processed foods are mostly made up of these three main nutrients: sugar, bad fats, and salt.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you that, like, the food system knows that if they can put at least 2 out of 3, if not 3 out of 3
Mhm.
together,
Mhm.
then they can bring you back for more. And I'm also telling you that each of these things on an individual basis is disruptive to the 3 layers of defenses. And I'm
Yeah.
also, now I want to just add to that there's a cocktail effect.
Yeah.
There's a cocktail effect. It's not just like singular. They can actually synergize in a negative way.
So, you've articulated very eloquently the issues with inflammation from an acute and chronic perspective. So, some of those symptoms, I think, just as you were saying them, a lot of people are going to be recognizing, like, oh my God, I've got skin issues, or I feel tired all the time, or I have fatigue, or I've got brain fog, or, I know someone with an arthritic condition. I know someone with metabolic issues. I know someone who's overweight or underweight and might be having the signs and symptoms associated with excess inflammation. I think it's a relatively new phenomenon that we understand the link between inflammation and mental health, and I'm glad that's getting a lot more attention as well. Therein lies the question of, okay, I understand in part it's because of food and the types of food that we tend to overconsume.
Yep.
Salt, sugar, and certain types of fats in certain doses. Obviously, there's a certain amount that you can consume healthily, but there's obviously the threshold, and most of us exceed that given
Right.
our dietary patterns. What do we do about it? That is probably the next sort of logical question. And how do I determine that this is definitely going to be related to inflammation as well?
Yeah.
Like, what
Well,
ways can we measure it?
so I guess what I would say is, like, first of all, it's not just nutrition as the
Sure.
only thing that matters,
Yeah,
right? And we can
absolutely.
delve later in the episode into other topics. I mean, we could go for 6 or 7 hours here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I would argue, though, that nutrition is perhaps the most powerful lever that we have, particularly for people who are consuming the Western diet.
Mm-hmm.
They have an entire world of opportunity in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, okay, our environment, Rupi, like the general thesis here is that our environment changed, right? I'm telling you that we evolved to live within a certain time and space, and we as humans, we are like evolutionary pioneers, right? We can like change the world around us, and now here we are, and like you are in a laptop right now, and we're within this walled space that has air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
and someone probably cleaned this space last night, and I came here in a car, and like all of these things didn't exist
Yeah.
120 years ago, right? And so all of this has changed. So should we try to be cavemen? And the problem with this is, like, I'm actually not trying to bash on the paleo diet, because there's a lot that's in there that I agree with.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
But the concept of us like being Paleolithic and then hopping in our car, you're busted, right? The idea of us being Paleolithic and then you just bought paleo chips at the supermarket, you're busted, okay? Like, I'm sorry, I don't care what is in them. They're not Paleolithic if they
Yeah.
come in a bag
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
have to pop open,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The idea of us being Paleolithic, and I know you're on your phone because I
Yeah,
saw you
yeah,
on
yeah.
Instagram. You're also busted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So are we honestly going to go back to being paleo? No.
Yeah.
So how can we live in modern days and make this work? The answer to that question is, let's look out into the world and ask the question, who are the people who are thriving, like, despite modern world, modern culture? And I would, if we could go on a world tour together, Rupi,
Mhm.
if there's a highly affluent listener to your podcast who wants to fund this, we would hop on a plane
Uh-huh.
and we would go first to the Mediterranean
Yeah.
because there's overwhelming evidence for a Mediterranean diet. And this concept of a Mediterranean diet, so to describe this, it is like, it really came from Ansel Keys, who is the founder of modern day epidemiology,
Mm.
where immediately after World War II, he was studying the risk for heart attacks, cardiovascular risk across the globe, not just in the Mediterranean. And he's like, okay, wait a minute. People in New York City are way more likely to have a heart attack than these rednecks in Italy, like, who are poor and live in the country,
Yeah.
right? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And so he drilled down and he discovered that they eat this diet that is rich, like abundant in plant-based foods, a lot of fruits, lots of vegetables, extra virgin olive oil, sourdough bread. They include fish and shellfish, include some fermented dairy. And, you know, and the other thing too is like, you could argue, oh, well, a Mediterranean dietary pattern. The Mediterranean is diverse.
Mm.
There's a lot of different dietary patterns
Yeah,
that exist.
absolutely, yeah.
Right. And I think that's cool. I love that. It's like a cultural crossroads for the world. But when we do research, we do have a definition, right, of what constitutes a Mediterranean pattern.
Yeah.
And when we apply that definition to modern populations of people, study after study after study is showing us that they're healthier. And my favorite study is the PREDIMED.
Mm.
So because the PREDIMED was like 7,500 people in Spain
Yeah.
who were high cardiovascular risk, but yet hadn't yet had a heart attack, 55 to 80 years old. And they basically got randomized to one of three diets. It was either a low fat diet, which historically, like we were told, this is what you're supposed to do, low in fat. Okay. So let's put that up against a high fat Mediterranean diet with extra virgin olive oil, like lots of it.
Yeah.
4 tablespoons per day. That's 400 calories of extra virgin olive oil per day.
Yeah.
Or a high fat Mediterranean diet with extra nuts, handful of nuts.
Yeah.
And what was amazing is they followed these people like for on average 5 years each. And what they found is that consistently the Mediterranean patterns, both of them, outperformed the low fat diet in terms of cardiovascular risk. So people, you know, people were following these patterns. They were less likely to have a heart attack. They were less likely to have a stroke. They were living longer. They had lower LDL cholesterol.
Yeah.
They had lower blood pressure. They had better cognitive function. There was the inference that it might protect them in terms of dementia risk. They had better blood sugar control. So like metabolically superior. And I think that like, to me, that blew the doors off of arguments that fat is inherently bad.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, so to me, like, you can't deny this, like, you know, one of the great nutrition studies of the last 25 years, looking at the Mediterranean dietary pattern against the low fat diet and cardiovascular risk and other outcomes. So, but it's not like, that's not our only option.
Sure.
We have other options. We could hop back in our plane and we could fly across the ocean, come to the islands of Japan, and think about these people that consumed a traditional Japanese diet that was high in plant-based foods and soybeans and rice and fish and real whole foods of many varieties. And this is why Okinawa is a blue zone, where like you have a disproportionate population of centenarians there. And the problem is that like Japanese doctors, Rupi, have been struggling because they're now having to deal with health conditions that didn't exist 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Because as Japan basically bounced back from World War II, they actually had tremendous economic growth, right? Like the modern version of Japan was brought during that time, and they abandoned their old diet and they westernized, and they started consuming more like food much more similar to the way that we eat in our countries.
Sure, yeah.
And suddenly they start seeing cases of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease,
Gosh.
which they weren't previously seeing.
Yeah.
Number one, that speaks to these are not just genetic conditions,
Yeah.
right? Like the genes didn't change,
Totally.
right? Number two, that speaks to like the power of a dietary change or like a lifestyle change, that you could have it where it's like very low and then things change. And in 1 or 2 generations, something totally different. The risk has really evolved.
Mm-hmm.
So these Japanese gastroenterologists, I want to meet these guys because like as a GI doc, I'm like, I love you guys.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So they took it upon themselves to conduct a study, Rupi, looking at, their thesis was, okay, so we have, and I want to frame this for the listeners who may not be familiar with these inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. We've touched on them a little bit here.
Sure.
If you go to a GI doctor in 2025 and you are diagnosed with these health conditions, there is a very strong possibility that they're going to put you on a class of medications called biologics.
Mm-hmm.
And the classic biologic, which I've prescribed and had great success with, is called infliximab.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And we know that as Remicade here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so now there's newer ones that exist now. Humira is a reasonably newer one. There's other ones beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the point though is like these drugs, they do work. They do work. They work by sort of like putting a Band-Aid on inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
But we learned during our conversation that inflammation doesn't just exist by itself. There's the gut barrier and there's the gut microbiome. And if we want to get to the root of this issue, we need to heal those things. So these Japanese gastroenterologists started a study where they said, we're going to treat you with infliximab, but we're also going to put you on a flexitarian diet. And it was like a traditional Japanese diet. It did include some meat, but not a tremendous amount of meat. But like getting back to more traditional Japanese food. Okay. So they like literally found that 95% of people who were on this combination of a flexitarian diet plus infliximab went into remission within a year, 95%.
Wow.
The gold standard for infliximab is about 55%.
Wow.
So this is, to simplify those numbers, imagine that I'm telling you, you have a 50-50 shot or a 19 and 20 chance of success.
That's insane.
I'll take 19 and 20 every day of the week when you're talking about a chronic inflammatory disease that like makes me feel horrible.
Gosh.
Right? All right. In addition to that, they tracked these people out for 10 years. And this is so cool. They found that 50% of people who were basically like put onto this diet, 50% of them stayed in remission and didn't have a single flare.
Wow.
With these conditions like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, a common question that patients ask is there a cure? The answer is no. There isn't a cure because you can't I can't put you in a position where the disease doesn't exist and will never come back. But if I gave you a permanent remission where what I'm saying is you never have another flare for the rest of your life, then although I can't call that a cure, I cured you. Like it effectively is a cure because if you never have a flare again, it's like as if you're the same as me who doesn't have this condition.
Absolutely.
And so 50% of the people who followed this approach did not have another flare for 10 years.
Gosh, that's incredible. Hey.
They looked at ulcerative colitis and they saw CRPs where the average CRP in the beginning was very high. It was 9. So now that's hard for the listeners at home to understand. I think you understand how high that is.
Yeah.
It's crazy high. They dropped it all the way down to a level of 0.5, which was within the normal range on this combination. So here's the point. We talked about the Mediterranean diet. Now I'm putting on the table a flexitarian diet that has proven its merit for reducing inflammation. And for the last time, we're going to hop in our plane, Rupi. We're glad that we have this rich benefactor. It's been a cool trip. We're having a good time.
A good flexitarian diet on this long haul flight here.
Yeah. All right. So we're on this trip. We have our families with us because otherwise you and I would get in big trouble.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
With our kids.
We've got to have a big plane with your kids.
That's true. That's true. And we're actually going to fly to actually very close to where you and I are right now.
Okay.
We'll see the Hollywood sign.
Oh, nice.
And we'll touch down in Loma Linda, California, which is not far from here.
Gotcha.
And this is a unique community, also a blue zone, where people live on average 10 years more than the average American. They don't have a different healthcare system. They don't have a different food supply. They just live differently. This is where the Seventh-day Adventists live. And part of their belief system is like there's a culture of health that exists. They care about their bodies, right? They see their bodies as being a gift from God. And so it's culturally normal to eat a clean diet, to not consume alcohol, to focus on community and social connection. And so what's interesting is this has led to the largest population-based study. By the way, there's the Epic Oxford study, which we could talk about if you want to, but which is in the UK. But this is the largest population-based study that's allowed us to take a look at other patterns that are not super common in the United States. They're a little more common in the UK, but they're not very common in the US, like vegan and vegetarian, and pescatarian. And what was interesting is that they found in their research in the Adventist 2 study of studying these populations, benefits to each of these dietary patterns in their own way. They're all beneficial. So vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, flexitarian, they found benefits in this study. And so I think I want to just take a quick moment to zoom out and say that, we have a culture that tries to force us to apply a label to our diet to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
And I think the conversation that we're having today shows us that it's not about the label that you apply, it's about the overall dietary pattern and that you have options.
Yeah.
And that there are many different dietary patterns that are anti-inflammatory and can promote your health. But I do think, though, that there's some common nutrients, common bonds between these dietary patterns that we've described that we could basically say, well, if you nail those things, and I have thought about this.
Yeah.
And there's 4 of them.
Okay. Before you go into those 4, actually, because we can get a bit more granular about the ingredients themselves, or perhaps the categories of ingredients that would fit into an anti-inflammatory nutritional pattern, I just want to double click on inflammatory bowel disease and your position as a gastroenterologist. Do you see an appreciation for diet in this way, given, one of the studies that's shown such a remarkable improvement in people's experiences with UC? Do you see a greater appreciation amongst your gastro colleagues, or are you still fighting an uphill battle with a lot of medics who just still have this idea that nutrition isn't important as it pertains to an inflammatory disease?
I think we're still fighting an uphill battle. And there's a systems-based problem. I don't think the problem is the intent of the doctors. I think the doctors mean well. So I actually come in a way in defense of doctors, Rupi, because if their entire sometimes I feel like they get, dirt thrown at them
100%,
where people say, oh, well, you just want to be rich. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, any person who goes to medical school, they could have been an investment banker. And you know what? My friends, when I was working a 30-hour shift, right? My friends who were investment bankers were in Iceland having fun and getting $1 million bonuses. Okay. And I was in debt and working a 30-hour shift and smelled horrible. That's so and are there doctors that are problematic? Sure. And so there's lawyers that are problematic, and there's politicians that are problematic, exist in every single field of humanity. But I think that doctors are well-intended. And the issue here is that they're not trained that nutrition is essential. They're not trained that nutrition is the root, like a root cause approach, right? What they're taught, which there's reasons for this, and I think it's like a lot of it has to do with how we've structured medical school, and also like the control of our organizations, which are sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. What they're taught is if that patient comes in with ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, you can give them an amazing response and they will feel so much better by giving them this drug.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of it. The pharmaceutical industry that shows up in your office with lunch is not going to say to you, and you should pair it with this dietary pattern because that dietary pattern will allow you to maybe one day take them off of this drug. They're never going to say that. I was actually kind of, you know what, you did an apology to someone earlier in the show.
Oh yeah.
So I'll take a quick moment to apologize to the drug reps who used to come to my office because I wasn't very nice to them.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason they're just trying to do their job.
Sure, yeah.
Right? They're just trying to do their job. And I was not nice to them because I was like, your company is telling us to put people on these drugs that are $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
And you're not providing the patient or the doctor with any way to take them off of the drug and to actually fix this problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that the point is, from my perspective, is that doctors don't feel confident or feel like they really know how to have that conversation, and they haven't been pushed to really have that conversation. And we haven't created incentives for doctors to have that conversation. In a world that exists where doctors get like literally 8 minutes with a patient, you can't have a nutrition conversation in 8 minutes. It's not possible. So the guidelines in the United States for inflammatory bowel disease actually say that you should recommend a Mediterranean dietary pattern to your patients who have inflammatory bowel disease. They've been updated and they say that. I celebrate that they say that. But the problem is it's not enough to put those words on paper and not activate an army to go and do it for you.
Yeah.
Right? That's the issue.
I agree. Completely agree. The guidelines for the UK have had diet and lifestyle not actually calling out Mediterranean patterns, but they've just said you should have a conversation about diet and lifestyle with your patients for IBD and a whole bunch of other conditions like hypertension and high cholesterol, hypercholesterolemia. But the problem is exactly what you've articulated. If you've got 8 minutes to deal with a patient who's come in with more than one thing, by the way, and you're not versed in nutrition yourself, then of course it's going to fall by the wayside. Or you're going to say something flippant like improve your diet and lifestyle, make sure you eat better, lay off the cheese, something like that. That's probably been literally said in, doctors' offices.
How does that land?
Across, yeah.
You flippantly walk out the door and say, lay off the cheese.
Yeah, lay off the cheese. And you know what?
Thanks,
People
buddy.
are probably like nodding along to this. Like, my doctor said, just lay off the red meat, lay off the cheese, sort out your diet and move a bit more.
Yeah.
It's this kind of like lackluster advice
Right.
that of course people are not going to put into practice because they don't have the means to. They don't have the knowledge around it, they don't have the motivation. And I think health coaching and dietitians is really an area that we should be spending a ton more money in.
100%.
Because we just do not have the resources to actually make this a reality.
Yeah, we need a teams-based approach. But I do think that patients
yeah.
ultimately turn to their doctor as being sort of the quarterback
For sure.
of the healthcare team.
Yeah.
And I do think that the doctors, I don't think they're off the hook. I'm not defending them to the point of putting them off the hook. They need to step up as the quarterback of the healthcare team and say nutrition is important. And I'm going to get you the support that you need so that we can make a good assessment and know what are the opportunities that exist there.
Yeah, totally. So back to those 4 things
Okay.
you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't want to derail us so much because we just hopped off a plane now. So
Yeah. Well, it was a good trip. We had a good time and it's over.
Glad I brought my passport.
It's over. Now it's time to roll up your sleeves and get to work. All right. Well, so you think about this, you go through these, my proposal of vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, flexitarian, Mediterranean, and what are the common themes between them, and what does the data say? And so I call these the 4 workhorses of nutrition for I call it plant-powered nutrition.
Yeah, which is a similar name to something that's coming out in January.
We'll talk about that. So the 4 workhorses, it's like this. If you were in 1850s and in a wagon careening across the plains, one horse might be enough to pull that wagon.
Sure.
But if you have to climb a mountain, which is where you're at when you're not feeling well, if you have to climb a mountain, one horse is not enough. And you want all four horses working in sync to power your health. And so the first is not going to surprise anyone, and that would be dietary fiber. Perhaps you heard I like this stuff. Did you hear that rumor? Did you hear that rumor?
I've heard of something called fiber fuel or something like that.
I'm kind of into it. Speaking of being a nerd. So, all right. But the thing about it is that, like, being completely real, there is nothing as powerfully anti-inflammatory as short-chain fatty acids.
Okay.
There's nothing that's as anti-inflammatory as short-chain fatty acids. And that is what our body actually needs to thrive. And what we've been describing so far is a bit depressing because, like, we're kind of talking about how all these things that are, like, dominating our world disrupt our microbiome, destroy our gut barrier, and increase inflammation. And what I'm saying is the fact that these three things, our three defense systems, are tethered together means that we can heal them together. And that comes from dietary fiber. Because when fiber goes in our mouth, it does not get digested until it comes into contact with your microbes. And those microbes transform it. It stops being fiber. By the way, just for clarity's sake, because I'm quite sure there's someone in the crowd who's going to point out that I didn't say this, not all fiber gets fermented. There's some fiber that just runs through you, and that tends to be, like, basically the insoluble fiber. Whereas the soluble fiber is the kind that when it comes into contact with your microbes, this is their food. And they will consume it, they will love it. And they will pay you back so much better than what you just did for them. Because they will unlock the short chain fatty acids, butyrate, acetate, and propionate. And those short chain fatty acids, Rupi, there are healing effects throughout the entire body. Those healing effects do affect your metabolism and your hormones and your mood and your brain health. But if we go back to the gut, those short chain fatty acids prop up the beneficial bacteria, help you to grow the good guys, and suppress the E. coli, suppress the ones that have the lipopolysaccharide, and simultaneously repair and restore the gut barrier. So I subtly added earlier that these epithelial cells are held together by what are called tight junction proteins. I mentioned that as being the cement that holds them together. If you want a strong gut barrier, you need to hold the cells together. And butyrate is what does that. Every 3 to 5 days, when we build a brand new gut barrier, we need sufficient quantities of butyrate in order to ensure that we can build those tight junction proteins. And then when you cross over to the other side, the immune system, this is the most anti-inflammatory thing that I've ever come across. But when I say anti-inflammatory, it makes it sound like the immune system is being, like, chilled to the point that it can't do anything. That's not actually true. Instead, what we're doing is we're taking them away from this battle where they're just in a frenzied state, and we're putting them in a position where they can pivot and reorient to the real battle.
Gotcha.
Because when there is a real battle, such as an infection, that immune system is ready to go on a full-scale attack, but it will be much more precise and targeted. So in other words, you get the benefit of a chilled out, anti-inflammatory, less chronic inflammation immune system. You get that. But you also get the benefit of being even more powerful when you really need it to step up and do its job, which is taking care of your body.
Yeah.
So these short chain fatty acids are like, this is, in my mind, the salve. This is what we need. And as I sit here, Rupi, one of the reasons why this needs to be included as one of the top 4 is that 95% of Americans and roughly 90% of people in the UK and roughly 88 or 85% of people in Australia are deficient in their fiber intake. So that 3 to 5 days of repairing and restoring the gut barrier, you're not adequately fueled up in order to really do that the way that your body needs. If we could address this one issue in all of these different countries, we would radically transform people's health.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people might be listening to this and thinking, okay, I get it. I've got to increase my fiber. I've got to focus on getting those different soluble fibers from various types. But the important stuff is the short chain fatty acids. And I've seen on some health online supplement marketplaces that I can buy some of these short chain fatty acids that
Yeah.
are butyrate and propionate, and they're being marketed as an easier way or a more efficient way of actually consuming short chain fatty acids and giving them to your microbes. Is there anything wrong with that thinking, or how would you approach supplementation with some of these things?
Right. So what's wrong with the thinking is, and let me fully unpack this.
Sure.
Okay. So what's wrong with the thinking is that your gut microbes live in your colon, which is where we need the short chain fatty acids. Right. This is where we're talking about the
Hmm.
activity taking place. And if you take a capsule and it dissolves in your stomach and pours that butyrate into your stomach, it will get absorbed
Hmm.
within the first 3 inches of your small intestine. It's not even close to coming into contact with your colon, which is where we really need it. Is it possible that trivial amounts are able to circulate through your bloodstream? Maybe. But like we don't have sufficient studies to say that this is the right approach.
Hmm.
Now, I'll provide a caveat, which is that if the day comes where you show me in a good clinical trial
Hmm.
that this can improve people's lives in the same way that I know that fiber can, I
Yeah.
know that fiber can,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If you can show me that, I'll buy in.
Hmm.
But as we sit here today, this is an assumption
Yeah.
to believe that butyrate in a capsule is going to do the same thing that fiber is going to do, when in fact, the way that fiber works is
Hmm.
it is strategically like honing in on the exact location
Mm.
that you evolved to get the short chain fatty acids,
Yeah.
which is in your colon.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I know we were talking facetiously about folks who don't believe that fiber is really good for them. And there are certainly anecdotes that are perpetuated online by influencers about taking fiber out of their diet and introducing more fats and proteins from various sources with resolution of some of their symptoms that
Sure.
may be related to inflammation. How would you unpack that for the listener and explain that anecdotal experience and why that might not be the best strategy for everyone?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, we have these fights
Mm.
on the internet, right, about
Yeah.
these things. And what we lose sight of is that if I were in a room with a patient as a medical doctor, all that I care about is making them better.
Mm.
And if they come to me and they say, this is what I did
Hmm.
and it has fixed my issues,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell them how dumb was that, right? I might talk to them about the long-term concerns that I have
Yeah.
and the opportunities that I think that exist. And I also think that the part that we really need to discuss that your listeners need to hear is understanding the rational basis for why a person gets better. So the majority of people are starting on a Western diet. And if you start on a Western diet and you transition to a whole foods diet of any variety,
Hmm.
you will see improvement
Yeah.
because there are things that exist within the Westernized diet that are unnatural and not found. Like when I say unnatural, I mean literally not found in nature. That includes some of the food additives. That also includes, though, the proportions of the sugar
Hmm.
and the fats and the salts that are not found in nature. Well, show me where in nature you find these things, right? The reason why they're hyperpalatable is because they're unnatural. So they're hacking our brains. So the point is, this is where they start. And then they transition to a potentially carnivore based diet and they see these improvements. Cool. Like that's the reason why. Now, the other issue is, let me zero in on the gut because there is some nuance here. I wish it were so simple
Sure.
that I
Yeah.
didn't have to even explain it, right? The issue here is I want to propose another analogy. I want the listeners to think of the gut microbiome. Think of it like a muscle,
Uh huh.
right? A muscle that gets stronger through exercise. So, yet at the same time, a muscle that if it's worked too hard, it hurts. So, with this approach, all right, if you take a person who has a healthy gut And I say to them, let's start to increase your fiber intake. I wouldn't radically transform it all. I wouldn't radically increase it all at once. I would start to slowly increase it. But if you take a person who has a damaged gut, when I go to add fiber, you have to understand, fiber is processed by your microbes.
Mm-hmm.
You need your microbes. You don't have the enzymes to do that. So you get exposed because your gut microbes are struggling. So you do this thing that's hard for them, right? And if the gut is a muscle, that would be like way too much work.
Yeah.
And especially if it's a damaged gut, that is like a person who's injured their shoulder and now you're asking them to lift 35 pounds over their head. They can't even lift their arm over their head.
Yeah.
Right? So what do we do, Rupi? Does that mean that we stop using our arm? Right? If you hurt your knee and your knee is in pain, does that mean that you lay on the couch for the rest of your life? Because if you lay on your couch for the rest of your life, you will not feel pain in that knee. But you will suffer the consequences of not moving at all. And you will not restore function to the knee either.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my proposal is that if you like go on a carnivore-based diet, you're basically going 0 carb, 0 fiber.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're completely avoiding these nutrients. And people say, oh, I feel better. I'm glad that you feel better, but you got to understand though, that's the equivalent of laying on the couch and not moving, right? What I want you to do is I want you to rehabilitate that gut microbiome. And if we rehabilitate the gut microbiome, you will restore function so that you can consume those foods that are good for you. And that frankly, they're delicious too. Don't you miss them? Don't tell me you don't miss them, right? I'm not talking about like kale without any dressing.
Sure, yeah.
No, I'm talking about delicious, colorful food. Yeah. Don't tell me you don't miss those things, right? I want to get you to a place where you can enjoy those things again and not worry that they're going to hurt you. And the way that we restore that functionality is by repairing and restoring the gut microbiome. So in the same way, like if you hurt your knee, let's heal the knee and let's build in an appropriate way from that point so that we can get you back on the tennis court. Because I think you're a tennis guy, right?
Yeah, I do like tennis.
Are you
yeah.
pickleball?
You know what? I'm getting into paddle.
Oh, really?
So paddle's getting big in the UK. Like there's paddle courts like popping up everywhere. And there's this really popular, so there's really taking us an aside by here, but like there's a really popular five-a-side a company called Power League. And I've heard that they have plans to transition some of their football fields into paddle courts because of the rise in popularity of paddle.
Wow.
You can't get a paddle court in London.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's
yeah,
cool.
we should play.
So where I live in Charleston, South Carolina. And for people who aren't familiar, this is on the East Coast of the United States, pretty far down south, like not quite to Florida, but not far from Florida. And like we're on the coast. And so we have great weather. And so pickleball is huge.
Yeah, I can imagine, man.
Huge.
Yeah.
So our tennis courts, like we have a neighborhood tennis court. No one plays tennis anymore.
Really?
Yeah, it's pickleball. Yeah.
I've heard this obsession with pickleball, but it hasn't reached the UK yet.
Well, it's a weather thing.
Yeah,
sorry,
it's probably
guys.
a weather.
Sorry.
It hasn't stopped us playing tennis. We have a grass court tennis tournament.
That's true.
Yeah, we do it to embarrass ourselves with our weather. Sorry, so we were talking about fiber and the lack of fiber in certain people's diets, and I think repairing and restoring the gut is a really important concept for people to understand, because whilst you might get some resolution of symptoms by taking fiber out of your diet, as a short-term strategy, that might make sense, but as a long-term strategy for health and well-being, at least looking at the studies that we have available to us now, that's not the best thing that we should be encouraging people to do.
I 100% agree. And we have no long-term data on a carnivore-based diet. We do know with total clarity that their LDL cholesterol gets completely out of hand. And people who dismiss that, I worry for them a lot, like all of them who dismiss that. So, and meanwhile, you know, in my favorite fiber study of all time, which was done by Andrew Reynolds, and basically he did a series of meta-analyses looking at all of the available studies on what happens when people consume more fiber. He found that when people consume more fiber, they are less likely to have a heart attack. They're less likely to die of heart disease. They're less likely to be diagnosed with multiple types of cancer, including colorectal cancer, including breast cancer, including esophageal cancer. Less likely to die from cancer. They're less likely to have a stroke. They're less likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. They live longer. Like fiber, to me, is the longevity nutrient.
Yeah,
More so than
absolutely.
any other thing,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Like all this stuff of like, NAD.
NAD.
Yeah. Like, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Like, why am I the one pounding the fiber drum? I think it's because they don't think fiber's sexy. I think fiber's
I
sexy.
think fiber is very sexy. Have you heard of there is a trend on TikTok right now that I keep on getting asked about. It's called fiber maxing. Have you heard about this?
No, but I like these people.
Fiber maxing is like this trend on TikTok where they're just trying to pound as much fiber as possible, which I think
Gotta be
there's a
careful with that.
balance.
Yeah,
There's
you
got to
gotta
be a
careful with that.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think these guys are literally like downing chia and downing like all the different sorts of soluble fiber they can find, flax and everything. And I think, there's a limit. And to your point about overworking microbes, this
Yeah.
could lead to the opposite effect that you want. But we do want to increase fiber, as you've stated. Most of us are deficient, but perhaps in a sensible way.
I mean, so like I sit here and I say today, like I want you to have good, healthy, satisfactory dumps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like, we're not supposed to talk about it, yet we all do it, except for my wife, but like everyone else. And
yeah, my wife
your wife
too.
doesn't either.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
What are the chances?
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that, but anyway. And but like we all do this, and like honestly, like that's a reflection of our gut health, truly, right? Most of actually our bowel movement is made up of microbes, believe it or not. It's not the excrement of our food. And so a measure of like having a healthy gut to me is a good, solid, healthy, satisfactory bowel movement. But these kids, when you blow out your colon, that is not what Dr. B taught you to do.
No, absolutely not.
Come on, TikTok.
And in terms of the amount of fiber, right? So 30 grams of fiber is generally touted as the amount of fiber that we should be consuming.
In the US, it's a little different.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
What's it?
Well, it's slightly different. So, I mean, basically, it's truly a match to calories. So for every 1,000 kilocalories, you're supposed to consume 14 grams of fiber.
Gotcha.
So for women, that ends up shaking out as 25 grams per day.
Okay.
And for men, that shakes out as 38 grams per day.
Okay.
So we're kind of on the two sides of the 30 number.
Okay.
But Rupi, I think that it needs to be personalized.
Yeah.
So like if we had a person, if you went back 15 years ago, myself, the fiber guy, I was probably 6 grams a day.
Wow, 6 grams.
I was like on a hot dog diet.
Oh my gosh.
Hot dogs and burgers, and I mean, like I guess there's a little resistant starch in potatoes, but
the stereotypical American diet. I mean, like
100%.
I didn't realize that people were actually consuming that as like every single day, hot dogs and burgers.
Dude,
Gosh.
Going through my medical training.
Yeah.
You just like you give everything that you got to the hospital. It owns you. It consumes you.
Yeah.
And with the little time that you have,
Yeah.
First of all, not going to cook. Second of all, you're poor.
Mm.
Third of all, you just want to enjoy your food. Like it's the only thing that you got.
You know what I think about my diet now? When I was a junior doctor, in 2009, when I started, I was probably, so I had a refined breakfast cereal that promised me it was good for me, but it was probably very low in fiber and probably have about 150 grams of that. So I'm talking about like 2 or 3 grams, I would say. And then I used to have a sandwich from the canteen that might have only given me like another 4 grams of fiber. So, and then my dinner was like usually a white pasta. That was like a typical, like whatever I could grab on the way home or like quickly throw together. So I'm probably not far off. I was probably a bit more than you, like 10.
Don't be holier than thou over there. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably about 10, 12 grams actually. I mean, I radically changed my diet as well, like yourself. So
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and I definitely got the benefits of that. So that's interesting about titrating it, because I think that's a common question that I get about how you can personalize your fiber requirements in the same way you can personalize your protein requirements every single day.
Yes, right. And I think that those fiber requirements, though, are also like you need to adapt them to specific details of a person, right?
Okay.
So, but I think that the key from my perspective is that forget that. Like, let's not make this too complicated.
Sure.
Right? I want to meet you where you are. And so this is a starting point, and we want to slowly increase. So I always say low and slow is the tempo. That was, by the way, a Beastie Boys song back in the day. So that's kind of why I like it.
Yeah.
But truly though, low and slow is the tempo when it comes to fiber, because if you do it just like exercise, you give your gut a chance to adapt, it grows stronger, and then it becomes capable of more. And that's the path to restoring function. That's the path to adding function. That's the path to increasing our fiber. Is there such a thing as too much? Of course there is.
Yeah.
And what is that number? It depends on the person, right? So for every person, if you were starting myself, if I was treating myself from 15 years ago, I would tell that guy to go from 6 grams a day to 10 grams a day. And I would see how he feels. And then I would work towards 15 and 20. And I would be cheering this person on the whole way, even though they're way below the 38 that they're supposed to be at.
Sure, yeah.
I'd be cheering that person on. But, you know, one day that person emerges and like a beautiful butterfly, here I am, people.
Absolutely. Okay, cool, man. So I think we probably are not done with fiber, but should we move on to the next
number
element?
two?
Number two, yeah.
All right. Well, number two is kind of part of the same
intended.
package. Number two is part of the same package, which is polyphenols. So polyphenols, but they're not the same. So a polyphenol, let me get nerdy for a quick moment here, Rupi. If you were to look, I was a chemistry major in college. If you look at the chemistry of polyphenols, basically they all share this ring called a phenolic ring. And then they're really big and complicated. So what that means is that we can't absorb them. And because we can't absorb them, they end up traveling all the way through our intestines, where they come into contact with our gut microbes in our colon. And guess what they have? The enzymes that we lack, they have, and they will take those polyphenols and just like they did to the fiber, they will ferment them, transform them, and now they're ready for absorption. So it's a story that's very similar to fiber, but it's not the same as fiber because you don't get short chain fatty acids directly from polyphenols. What you get instead is you get the benefits of the polyphenol. So that could be like resveratrol or quercetin, and go down the line, you hear about all these different ones, curcumin that comes from turmeric. There's all these different ones that are beneficial for us. There's about 8,000 polyphenols that we've identified so far, and I'm sure there's even more than that. We just don't really have the technology or ability to like isolate and understand them yet.
Sure, yeah.
So you get those circulating in your bloodstream. They have antioxidant properties, which basically, in a way, is like reducing inflammation in the body, making it easier for your body to function the way that it's supposed to. But they also have an effect directly on your microbiome. Polyphenols transform the microbiome, shift it in a way so that you get more microbes that can produce short-chain fatty acids. So the beauty of this arrangement is that you could have the same amount of fiber intake and increase your polyphenol intake, like in theory. If you kept the fiber the same, but you increased the polyphenols, you would get more from the fiber. You would get even more short-chain fatty acids.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. What do you make of some of these supplements and powders that are purified polyphenols that are derived from actual plants? Do you think they hold some value for folks, or would you rather people get it from the whole food in its entirety?
So, first of all, I, like with total transparency, am the owner of a supplement company. And we could talk more about like why I decided to go and do that. But I'm going to say something that's going to be kind of weird for the owner of a supplement company, which is that I sincerely believe, and I've always maintained, that nutrition needs to come first. And that nutrition should be the driving factor for where we get our essential nutrients. But I also believe that we're silly to have opportunities for health sitting on the table and to create artificial rules about what's allowed and not allowed. Are medications allowed or not allowed? They should be allowed. Are supplements allowed or not allowed? They should be allowed. But they should be smart. You don't need to take every single supplement. You don't need to Brian Johnson it. Right? Spend like literally $100,000 a year or whatever.
Oh, no, it's more than that. It's like 2 million.
Oh my gosh. Come on, bro. NAD at the ears.
It's probably largely NAD.
So NAD'd up. Anyway.
You do you, Brian. That's all good.
Well, there's some, I mean, with many of these people, including him, like there's things that they come up with. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
I
agree. I agree. I think it's
a really
cool,
interesting learning experience, I think, for everyone. And it's almost like you need some of these N of 1 folks like doing things in public that actually kind of push the needle in some weird way. Like I don't agree with largely what his sort of protocols are, but it is really fascinating to watch. And
Yep.
sometimes it kind of educates people about an area that I want them to be more cognizant of, like, cacao flavonols and why that's important, and the importance of getting good quality extra virgin olive oil in your diet, and
Yeah.
why you should be looking at the labels and all this kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. So to answer your question, like I think that diet should be the driving factor for
mhm,
our polyphenols. That the colors that we see when you say like eat the rainbow,
mm,
you're basically saying eat a wide variety of polyphenols because every single color has unique categories of polyphenols that tend to exist within that category. Um, and the other thing I would add is that fermentation, like fermented foods, are extra beneficial
mhm,
because what I described a moment ago is an inactive polyphenol until it comes into contact with your microbes in your colon, and then they apply their enzymes to activate it.
mhm,
And now what I'm saying is that actually fermentation is like pre-digestion,
mhm.
where I used to believe, Rupi, I'd be curious to hear what you think about this. And we could like talk about alcohol and
Yeah,
unpack
yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Because actually my position on alcohol has moved towards less.
yeah, yeah. Me too. Yeah.
But at the same time, my position with polyphenols and alcohol has shifted where I used to believe if you just drink grape juice, it's got the same polyphenols.
Uh huh.
And now I'm like, no, I actually think that there is something to the fermentation process
Okay.
because the fermentation process is going to take those polyphenols like
Mhm,
resveratrol
mhm.
and activate them.
Gotcha. Mhm.
So, nonetheless, with alcohol, my point is you don't need the alcohol
Yeah.
in order to get those polyphenols.
Mhm.
There's tons of opportunities, including de-alcoholized wine.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I've become a fan of de-alcoholized wine, and I try to get this on my team in London. I got sent some 0% red wine, and I thought it was fantastic. I drank it, and I was like, "This is great." I get the feeling of like drinking some red wine with my meal. No one else agreed with me. They all thought it tasted horrible.
Oh, really?
But I maintain, I mean, I love this particular brand of red wine, and I drink it all the time and I buy it, but no one else drinks it with me. So
Yeah.
I look like an alcoholic drinking this bottle on my own. But my position on alcohol has evolved. I used to think like there was some benefit to having some red wine every single week, and that was mainly influenced by some of the early Mediterranean diet studies, where actually having red wine counted as a point towards your Mediterranean diet score. But after looking at the research of the last 10, 15 years, my position is that if you enjoy alcohol, do it in real severe moderation.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that even red wine has a particular health benefit. So I wouldn't recommend people have red wine or other alcohol in
Yeah, I
their
wouldn't
diet.
chase it. If you're not drinking,
Yeah,
don't add it.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and if you are drinking, like where I start to draw a line of concern is
Mhm.
regular consumption.
Yeah.
So because where I've seen trouble is people who are routinely consuming alcohol.
Mhm.
One drink is all it takes to disrupt your sleep
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have seen some examples. So being a gastroenterologist, I also take care of people who have liver disease.
Yeah.
And I've seen examples of, especially in women, Rupi, where there are couples that exist
Mhm.
where they like will have an evening drink,
Yeah.
and they'll make the exact same drink, and have it and share it together.
Uh-huh.
And it could be somewhere between 1 and 2 alcoholic beverages in total.
Gotcha.
And the guy is completely fine, and the woman develops chronic liver disease.
Oh, wow.
And because like that can be enough if done with consistency
Really?
to actually create issues. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I didn't think I appreciate that properly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with you. I am now in a position where I don't think people should be chasing alcohol, but I also don't think they should be replacing it with marijuana either.
Yeah.
In the States,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are doing that.
It's a very big issue here. I mean, particularly in LA, like it's quite it's very weird for me to just see people smoking marijuana on the street so liberally. And I agree. I feel like it's not only a gateway drug, but also it's got ramifications. And I think those have been massively downplayed because of the fact that it's been legalized. And we've got to treat these things in the same way we would treat alcohol. And to your earlier point about women who have a lower tolerance level. We all have different tolerance levels to something like alcohol. And I think we need to be aware of those as well. But sometimes it's indolent, like you said.
Yeah. 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 So the classic, I mean, we've all known, like I remember in high school, there were kids who smoked weed all the time and you call them, potheads,
Yeah.
right? Or a stoner. And like they were cognitively slow.
Yeah.
And it's now been shown with total clarity that the harmful consequences of marijuana on cognitive function. In fact, the brain literally shrinks on MRIs for people that chronically smoke.
Wow.
And then the issue that started to pop up in the last 15 years in gastroenterology clinics is chronic nausea and vomiting. So originally we used to call this cyclical vomiting syndrome. And, but you would see these kids, especially kids and particularly young men, where they come in and like they're 18 or 19 years old, the parent is there. And I would ask them one question. And if they answered this one question, it was a secret. They didn't know what I was going after.
Yeah.
And if they answered a certain way, I knew what they were doing.
Really?
Without their parents knowing.
Really?
Yeah. So the question was, do you like taking hot showers?
Really? What does that mean?
Yeah.
That's
right.
not what that means.
No. So this is the thing. The parents didn't know either.
Yeah.
But basically,
I feel like such a narc. Like I've got no idea.
Okay. Well, so we now recognize this as cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
Okay.
All right. Which is a consequence of chronic marijuana use. The people that smoke every day. Again, more common in young men. Like we're talking like teenage dudes. And they feel nauseated. They often throw up. And the solution to feel better is to smoke or to take a hot shower.
Really?
And it probably has to do in the shower with activation of their innate opioid system.
Really?
So yeah, because the cannabis is also activating that.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so anyway, with these kids, they all figure out on their own that, oh my gosh, when I'm not feeling well, when I'm feeling sick, I can go and take a steamy hot shower.
Okay.
And it relieves my symptoms. So I would ask this trick question, and if they said yes, I mean, you could kind of tell a lot of times. Like again, like these people are cognitively slow.
Sure, yeah.
So you can kind of tell, and then the tricky part is like typically like these kids are like, if they're over 18, then I need to like get access to them without the parent.
Yeah.
But ultimately what you need is buy-in. This is a tricky thing because you have to get buy-in from them because when they don't feel well, they smoke. But the reason why they're sick is the fact that they smoke.
Yeah.
So you have to break that cycle.
Yeah. There are a lot of rappers in both the UK and US that rap about smoking. Obviously, it's part of the culture. A lot of them that have been around for a long time, particularly in the UK grime scene, I'm showing my age here, they've started developing GI issues and they've actually been public about it as well. And I've wondered to myself, apart from the stress of touring and obviously diet and all the rest of it.
Circadian disruption.
Yeah, circadian disruption, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is the fact that they are regular and flagrant cannabis users something related to their GI issues? And it sounds like there's going to be an issue there.
Yeah, probably.
Wow.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
There's some big ones that have been public about it. I don't know if you know about Drake and Skepta and a few of those peeps. We should definitely look at it afterwards. I'll show you some of their posts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So the difference between you and I is my oldest is 11 and yours is only 8 months. So you were cool until 8 months ago. Whereas I haven't been cool in 11 years. So I want to talk about, you want to talk about Tupac? Should we talk about Biggie?
So, we can talk about it later, absolutely.
I mean, I used to talk about Diddy and Jay-Z, but I don't talk about them anymore. Cut the mic.
And the pod.
All right, shall we get back to our
we'll get
list?
back to it. Okay,
all right.
So we've done fiber.
So we've done fiber, we've done polyphenols. And I'm going to bring back something that we've already touched on, but I want to go a little bit deeper, which is fermented foods.
Okay, yeah.
So again, Rupi, when I select these 4 workhorses, you shouldn't be picking things that you're already doing. You should be picking things that you're not doing. That's where the opportunities exist. People are not consuming fermented foods. Very rarely are they consuming fermented foods. when that patient came in, you said, eat less cheese.
Yeah.
I'm not counting cheese in the
Yeah.
fermented food category. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I am talking about is there's an array of options that include fermented plant-based foods like sauerkraut and kimchi and tempeh and miso. I'm like starting to salivate as I talk about these things because I love them. You can make your own. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried making fermented pickles at home.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not hard to do. They're delicious.
Yeah.
Right? Fermented green beans, fermented dillies are so good. There's kombucha, water kefir. There's also dairy-based like yogurt and kefir are options. These are all healthy.
Yeah.
The data is very clear that they're anti-inflammatory. And there was a breakthrough study, because I have been pounding this drum for about 10 years. But there was a breakthrough study out of Stanford, the Sonnenbergs and Christopher Gardner, where they took a group of people and they put them on a high fermented food diet. And what they showed is that after 8 weeks of this high fermented food diet, two things happened. I guess before I say these two things, I just want to remind the listeners. I know it's a broken record, but remember, microbes, gut barrier, and inflammation, immune system.
Yep.
All right. The two things that happened are that the gut microbiome added diversity. So you have a healthier microbiome. And in sync with that, the inflammatory measures all dropped. The cytokines, which are measures of inflammation, these ones were inflammatory cytokines, they dropped. More recently, Rupi, there was a new study that suggested that the consumption of sauerkraut repairs and restores the gut barrier. Well, of course it does. The listeners of your podcast could have told them that, because they know that if you fix the microbes and you fix the immune system and you see less inflammation, you already know in between those two things is the gut barrier. It is getting healthier.
Yeah.
But now you gotta validate these things. And so they validated it. So where we are today is that fermented foods are great for your gut. They are in a way pre-digested. So oftentimes easier on the gut. They unlock nutrients that you wouldn't get access to. So when I talk about like how you can ferment fiber in your colon, you can ferment polyphenols in your colon, fermented foods have special types of fiber that are already fermented, special types of polyphenols that are already fermented, special types of protein that have been pre-digested, giving you easy access, better bioavailability. And then you're also taking, like when people talk about certain nutrients that they're concerned about, you're taking many of those nutrients and you're reducing them. So, for example, phytic acid. I'm not actually scared of phytic acid, but some people are.
Yeah.
But you do reduce phytic acid in the process. If you take sourdough, it has a lower glycemic index. That means that like basically it's less likely to spike your blood sugar than a regular bread would typically do. And then the last thing, here in the States, we have a very serious concern that started to emerge. I've been talking about this for a while, but people are starting to really catch on to this with how we treat our food in preparation, like our farming, our agricultural practices.
Yeah.
So glyphosate is widely used in the United States and often used on wheat, sprayed to dry it out.
Do you mind telling the folks what glyphosate is? Because I don't think the UK audience is as aware of what glyphosate might be.
Do y'all have Roundup in the UK?
I think
don't
there
have
are
yards.
different. I don't know if the trade name is Roundup, but we definitely have access to weed killers that are actually banned in certain parts of the EU. That we can just spray in a lawn, spray anywhere. And I think it's the same in the US, right? And I think this trade name for glyphosate is Roundup. But
so Roundup is what people spray on their yards.
Gotcha.
So when you see a perfectly manicured yard that looks like it's from a golfing magazine, that's typically because they're spraying their yard with this Roundup. Now Roundup does include things other than just glyphosate, but here's the key: you have to understand that glyphosate it's a herbicide, which means that it's designed to kill plants. And it was approved. Like it's basically, they said, you know what, we're not super worried about human consumption on this, because the way in which glyphosate works is through something called the shikimate pathway that disrupts the production of certain amino acids. And so they said, well, in humans, we can create those amino acids. We don't have a problem. Whereas like plants, they can't produce those amino acids. But guess who else can't produce those amino acids? Our microbes.
Mm.
So the problem is that if you expose these microbes to glyphosate, then you're going to kill them.
Mm.
And we know that our microbes are being exposed to glyphosate. Like with bread specifically, the problem that exists in the States is that the wheat, it's not that you spray the wheat before harvest, it's that you spray the wheat after harvest.
They spray it afterwards.
Yes, because it's basically like wheat, when you harvest it, you got to dry it out,
Oh.
right? So you can sit and wait
Oh gosh.
and wait, or you can spray with glyphosate and it's ready to move to the next step.
Oh wow.
So it accelerates the process. So it's great for whoever that farmer is.
Sure. Yeah.
But the problem is in the States, like there's nothing that requires them to say whether your wheat was sprayed with glyphosate or not sprayed with glyphosate.
Gosh.
So you could be consuming bread and you have no idea,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? To reassure some people, organic is not allowed to be sprayed with glyphosate.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we have very little control over, for example, if flour were grown outside the United States and imported. We don't know, right? We have more control over stuff that's produced here.
Sure.
So the point though is like that glyphosate, when you ferment your food, it actually gets reduced. So that's pretty amazing to think about that. Like we're talking about a pesticide that's being reduced by these microbes. They go to work for us. So I'm a big fan. Like when people think about fermented foods, they tend to think about the bacteria. They call them probiotics. I don't have a problem with that because I know what they mean. But I actually think that the value is not just the probiotics. The value is the transformation of the nutrients, the transformation of the food that's already occurred, regardless of whether the probiotics, regardless of whether the bacteria are present or not present.
Yeah, totally. Super interesting about glyphosate and the fact that it's sprayed after harvest, because I had this idea of it being sprayed whilst it was still living. And you got these images of these planes spraying huge monocrops in the middle of the country. But the fact that it's sprayed afterwards, you would understand why the residues are so high for that reason.
Yeah.
And I guess even with organic, there are still going to be some cross-contamination with residues from other fields. And you just can't control it.
You can't control that. And a lot of these environmental toxins, the problem is, Rupi, like you drive yourself crazy.
For sure, yeah. It's very anxiety-provoking, I think we're getting a lot more cognizant of things like glyphosate in the UK, but it's definitely a slower conversation.
Yeah, so think about this. A person in the States says, I'm gluten intolerant.
Yeah.
Right? They consume bread. They don't feel well. Yet they go to Italy on vacation. And they're like, I had the best time. I was eating pizza. I was eating pasta. I had zero issues. Okay. I can tell you for a fact that you are not gluten intolerant because the bread in Italy has gluten. Right. And it's not a matter of like, oh, well, the American bread has been like, like selected to be high in gluten. That's not the issue. The issue is how we're processing the wheat in the United States. That's what I think the issue is that we've been labeling people as having gluten issues. And I don't doubt people who like consume wheat containing foods and have problems, but I don't think it's the gluten. I think it's been sort of misplaced as the problem. I think it's actually the glyphosate in many cases.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of progress on this, at least in people's understanding of it and awareness of it, and hopefully that will trickle down to different practices.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right.
Number 4. Are we ready?
yeah, let's do it. So we've done, just to remind, we've done fiber, polyphenols, fermented foods.
Yeah.
And this is the 4th one.
Yeah. Well, and again, we're sticking with the tradition of like, we haven't been consuming enough of these 4 things. So my number 4 is healthy fats. Healthy fats, because do we have fat in our diet? Yes, we have fat in our diet, but it's the wrong fats. And we need to be getting more. I'm going to tell you which 2 I want you to get more of.
Okay.
I want you to get more mono unsaturated fats, which are the kinds that you find in extra virgin olive oil, which are the kinds that you find in avocados, and you'll find them in a lot of nuts. And I also want you to get more omega-3s. So omega-3 polyunsaturated fats are all of the polyunsaturated fats, by the way, both omega-3 and omega-6 are what we call essential. What that means is that you have to get them from your diet. if you don't get, your body needs them to function properly. And if you don't get them from your diet, then your body will not function properly. And we don't have a problem with omega-6s. We overconsume them. And some people blame the seed oils, and that's part of the conversation. I don't have an issue with that. But we don't get enough of the omega-3s. Where do they exist? So there's actually 3 types of omega-3s: ALA, EPA, and DHA. ALA is found in, and I'll explain those 3 more in a moment, Rupi. I know it's a complex issue. ALA is found in a lot of seeds and some nuts. So chia, flax, hemp, basil seeds. These are great sources of ALA omega-3s.
Yeah, all
so are
delicious
walnuts
as well, yeah.
If you make a smoothie, they should be in there.
Yeah.
You're making a salad, they should be in there. Yeah. So, by the way, those kids on TikTok who are blowing up their colons, my weird groupies, that I didn't tell them to do that, and they've taken it too far on gut talk. The chia and the flax, if you don't actually grind them, then you don't get access to the omega-3s. You would only have insoluble fiber. You would not get access to the omega-3s.
Gotcha.
So make sure this is a tip for the listeners, make sure you grind your chia and your flax to get access to those.
I tried this, sorry to take us off topic. There's a recipe for a 2-ingredient bread with chia. I don't know if you've seen this. You just grind the chia into it's like a wet, sandy texture, and then you add a good dose of water and you let it sit there for like 10 minutes, and then you roll it out just like you're doing a chapati or a roti, and then you dry cook it on both sides, and it turns into this malleable like bread that you can fill up with like in a like a wrap basically.
Gosh,
and it's delicious.
That's amazing. I've never heard of that before.
It's
Do you have a
delicious.
recipe for that?
I'll give it to you. Yeah.
Let's put it in the show notes.
I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. I tried it. It was not my recipe. It's someone I found on YouTube, and I did it live on Instagram just to show folks like I'm doing this because I don't believe it works, and it worked. And I was really surprised. I was like, this could be great for people with genuine gluten intolerance, or people who are trying to increase fiber in their diet and they don't want to buy the wraps that unfortunately are quite ultra processed because of the additives and emulsifiers they use. But sorry, is it short?
No, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Chia has this the reason why that works is that chia has this unique ability to absorb water, moisture. So, and you can take advantage of that and create quite delicious food like chia puddings and things like this. So, anyway, to get the other forms of omega-3s, so ALA is the one that you get from the nuts and the seeds. EPA and DHA are the other forms. The one that's most important is DHA. It is crucial for cognitive health, crucial for our brain, and it also is anti-inflammatory, more so than the other 2. In theory, there is a conversion that does occur from ALA to EPA to DHA. In theory, you can move it through that process. The problem is that it's not very efficient.
Sure.
It varies by person, and particularly among men, it's extremely low, extremely low. And among postmenopausal women, actually, because estrogen,
really?
it's the estrogen that actually enhances the ability to make that conversion.
Okay.
So there's this sort of like idea, and I actually probably 10 years ago was on board with this idea. I am no longer on board with it. The idea was that if you consumed enough seeds and nuts, that you would get enough DHA.
Gotcha.
And I'm not convinced by that at this point. There are people who will do everything right and still not get enough DHA.
Yeah.
The advantage that we have is you can test. There's a blood test.
Yeah.
And the blood test gets your omega-3 index, and where you want to be is 8 to 12%. That's where you want to be. So this is a ripe opportunity for potentially supplementation for people that want to take that approach. So supplements can be used, and like if you know that you're deficient in a nutrient, you need more. That's where supplements come in.
Yeah.
But the other aspect of this is that the best sources of EPA and DHA come from the sea, right? So it naturally exists in the ocean, and it actually starts with the plants in the ocean. It starts with the algae, but then the algae enter into the basically food system through the fish, and then it basically can like accumulate up the up the chain. So like we think about salmon,
Mm.
there's no doubt salmon is like a wonderful source of omega-3s,
Mm-hmm.
and they originated as plants.
Yeah.
The salmon didn't create it.
Yeah.
The salmon stored it. So for people who consume fish, I think that's can be a wonderful source, and routine consumption of fish is, in my book,
Mm-hmm.
anti-inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because in the Adventist 2 study that we were talking about in Loma Linda, California,
Mm-hmm.
actually the longest lived population of people were the pescatarians.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're getting that source of long chain omega-3 fatty
In
acids.
those long chain omega-3s.
Ah, interesting.
So now, if in theory a person didn't want to consume fish,
Mhm.
then that's where you need to look at, potentially supplementation. And you could do fish oil. It's less expensive. Or you can do an algae-based omega-3.
Yeah.
I tend to, if you can afford it, I tend to favor the algae-based omega-3 for purity reasons.
Yeah, me too.
Because the fish bioaccumulate other stuff.
Yeah.
And so it'll still be in the fat.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's awesome. So we've got this list of 4 categories, things that we should be consuming as part of an anti-inflammatory nutrition strategy. If someone's trying to rehab their gut, would you recommend they go through these categories step by step, or is there a certain strategy that you would take to sort of improve their overall digestive health? If, let's say, they've had the stressor of antibiotics, stress, poor diet over a period of time.
There is this paradox that exists where the thing that's the most healing of the 4 that I've mentioned is also the most challenging to a disrupted or damaged gut. And that's fiber. Yeah. So to me, fiber stands among those 4 as the most powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do with this person who has a disrupted or damaged gut, if they're not in a position of being able to really tolerate fiber, is to make some adjustments to how we approach this. One adjustment that you can make is to go at it low FODMAP.
Mm-hmm.
So FODMAPs are the fermentable parts of our food. You can still get access to prebiotic fiber.
Mm-hmm.
That's good for your gut microbes. Yeah. But when you go low FODMAP, it will reduce the bloating that exists.
Mm-hmm.
So my second book, Rupi, was a cookbook. Now,
my favorite book.
That's your favorite?
It's my favorite book.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, I love that book. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, thank you. Well, I don't know if I'll ever do another cookbook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay,
That's
cool.
a separate issue. That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
That has more to do with I just want to make as big of an impact as I can possibly make.
Sure, yeah.
And I think when people think of me, they don't think of recipes.
Okay.
Whereas I think with you, it's a little bit different.
Sure, yeah.
So, but anyway, in the cookbook, the reason why I created the Fiber Fueled Cookbook was actually I view books as tools for healing, an opportunity for me to insert myself into a person's life and counsel them for a weekend.
Yeah.
And the cookbook, I had so many people who were like, I can't tolerate fiber. I don't feel well eating fiber fueled. What can I do? And I was like, well, let me create the protocol for you. And so that's what that cookbook is. And it's got an entire chapter that's low FODMAP.
Yeah.
So if you are this person who's struggling, that chapter is for you.
Yeah.
And you just crack it open. You can read it. You can educate yourself and empower yourself with knowledge. But at the same time, you can also keep it super simple. Try some of the recipes.
Yeah.
See how you feel. And for a lot of people, they're going to feel better.
Yeah.
The other thing that we have, I'm going to get back to the food in a minute. But since we're on the topic of FODMAPs, I feel compelled to say, like I mentioned earlier, that I own a supplement company. So the supplement that we have available right now, we have more coming very soon, and we're excited about that.
Oh, really? You got more?
Yeah.
Sick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be really cool.
Okay.
I mean, basically, like this entire company is about me not feeling satisfied. Like 70% of people that go to see a gastroenterologist are using supplements already.
Yeah.
And I was never satisfied with the quality of the products that exist.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create products that serve a purpose. The beauty of like GI is that it's not this abstract thing. People don't feel well. So if I make them feel better, they know. They know that my product works, right? So I wanted to create better products. And so I created basically the prebiotic that I always wished I could have had. And that includes that it's certified FODMAP friendly.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So that way it's gentle for people that have gut issues. But like the other thing about this, I guess a couple other quick things on this, quick hitters are like, we haven't really touched on this yet, but variety
Mm.
is really key. So all the fiber supplements are like a single source of fiber.
Yeah.
What?
It's always been one of my biggest issues with some of those fiber supplements that you're referring to, because it is just one type, but
Yes, and you feed certain families of microbes that like that fiber,
for sure.
and you potentially overfeed
Yeah.
those families of microbes.
Yeah.
And this is where we see some fiber supplements sometimes get negative studies. So let's diversify the product. So that's where basically my product contains 7 unique prebiotic sources. They're all prebiotics, representing fiber and resistant starch and polyphenols. We didn't talk about resistant starch, but basically you can think about resistant starch as being like similar to fiber,
Gotcha.
where it produces short chain fatty acids. So having all 3 of those categories, we're representing now the different types of prebiotics, and several of those ingredients have human clinical trials where it's like, look, I know when people take this ingredient for 4 weeks, this is what happens, right? In terms of their gut symptoms, in terms of their gut microbiome, in terms of their bowel movements, there's changes that are beneficial, right? But then like the last thing is that like products, like how do you feel about a product that has no transparency and you're just expected to trust that the company is taking care of you in an honest way? That's just, I don't think that's right. So we are as transparent as we can possibly be, where we run every single batch for about 130 different tests, including pesticides, including glyphosate, including heavy metals, including things that like I have to push the laboratories to be like, can you run salicylic acid? Can you run methyl salicylate? Can you run oxalic acid? Like these weird things, histamine levels.
Yeah.
And we give the entire report to our customers.
Gotcha.
So they can download that.
That's
Every single lot, you just enter the lot number and you can download your report to see the numbers.
This is something that I talk about a lot on this pod, and people will recognize this. You have to go to a supplement manufacturer's website and demand to see this transparency, because this is so important, considering the number of supplements that are polluted, knowingly or unknowingly, it doesn't matter, but you have to go the extra mile, which sounds like exactly what you're doing, to ensure the purity of product.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you are transparent about that, because that's exactly how food as well as supplements should be.
Yeah. The other thing that you can do is look for certain certifications. So in the United States, there's a certification called NSF. And NSF, basically like they run your, so by the time this episode airs, we will be NSF certified. And they run your product through an entire gauntlet of tests to show that it is what you say it is, and it's clean, and it doesn't have all these different things. So, and that's the other thing that you can look at. It's a marker quality, but it's hard for a manufacturer to do it. So you can't like do NSF certification and sell the product inexpensively. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So it's a mark of a premium product.
Gotcha.
All right. So with this person who we're trying to heal, there's a role for this kind of thing, right? Because even though they struggle with fiber, if we could give them this type of fiber that's low FODMAP, it will help them, right? The other thing about them is that we can lean into the things that are less challenging to the gut. So we can lean into the healthy fats. They're good for you. We can lean into the fermented foods. They're good for you. We could sprout our food, like legumes and whole grains. We could sprout our food.
Yeah.
It becomes easier to digest. It still has tons of fiber.
Yeah.
Right? If you're making beans, you soak your beans, pour out the water, add some more water, pour that out too. And you will notice that they're easier to consume.
Yeah.
Right? So there's all these tricks that you can start to apply.
Yeah.
But I think the last thing too, Rupi, I don't think we'll have time to like dig into all these things today. So that's for another day.
Yeah, for sure.
But like there's ways to heal your gut without lifting a fork. And that includes you like tapping into your 24-hour biological rhythm, which is your circadian rhythm. And like basically like anchoring that in the morning and anchoring that in the evening, creating healthy habits in the morning and in the evening to basically like teach your body. I mean, let me say this, and I think this might sound radical, but I truly believe that this is the case. If you literally changed nothing except you did everything consistently at the same time
Okay.
every day,
Uh-huh.
you would be way healthier.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you went to sleep at the same time every day,
okay.
you woke up at the same time every day,
Yeah.
if you ate your meals at the same time every day,
Uh-huh.
if you did not change anything else,
Yeah.
but you did everything with consistency,
Uh-huh.
you would be way healthier
Yeah. Yeah.
because your body wants to predict what you're going to do. Your body wants to be prepared to help you and support you. And if your life is a circadian mess,
Yeah.
like mine was for a very long time,
Yeah, me too.
then you should expect your metabolism to be in disarray.
Yeah.
And they've shown this, like you deprive people of sleep and it doesn't take long to like basically start to see their blood sugar start to be affected, right? It doesn't take long to affect their microbiome. It doesn't take long to affect their appetite. They're hungrier.
Mm-hmm.
They're craving simple carbs.
Yeah.
So circadian rhythm, and we should include fasting in there because I mentioned meal times. So like fasting to me, we always talk about like, how long are you fasting? That's cool. But what about the consistency part?
Yeah.
Because I think that's underrated.
Absolutely.
I think sleep is a part of that. And then, of course, exercise should be discussed. A quick hit on exercise. The microbiome studies are interesting, Rupi. So I talk about like variety in your diet.
Yeah.
You should have variety in the gym.
Yeah.
You should have variety of exercise.
Yeah.
There's different results that people get from running and endurance. There's different results that people get from strength training. And they're both good.
Mm-hmm.
There was an interesting, did you see the microbiome study with the marathon runners in Boston?
I heard about how, I know maybe it's a different study, but I heard about how ultra endurance runners had signs of leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability
Because they're going too far.
because they're overtraining. Yeah. I've seen that one, but I don't think it was the Boston
So
Marathon
the issue
one.
with them is that like anything to an extreme
Sure, yeah.
ends up being bad, and they create a hypoxic intestine.
Yeah.
All right. They did this study looking at marathon runners in Boston. Of course, the Boston Marathon is widely considered to be the top marathon in the United States.
Yeah.
And so, they looked and they discovered that there was this one bacteria called Veillonella that was disproportionately represented in the marathon runners.
Really?
And so the authors are like, whoa, what is this? I mean, of course, like they're trying to patent this and turn it into a probiotic, right? So that you and I can be elite athletes. Guys like you and I can jump off the gym and jump off the couch and run a marathon.
Yeah.
All right. So
if only it was that simple.
So here's the deal with Veillonella. It's so interesting because Veillonella, they discovered, breaks down lactic acid. When you run, lactic acid accumulates in muscles. That's what causes muscle fatigue. If you want to become better at distance exercise, you need to create more efficiency when it comes to lactic acid. So the suggestion, I mean, this is like, it's association study. It's not proven, but the suggestion is that the Veillonella actually improves your endurance by breaking down lactic acid. And then what they did is they went and they gave some of this Veillonella to mice.
Okay.
And they ran them on the treadmill on the wheel.
Yeah.
And they had super athlete mice.
What?
With this Veillonella.
What?
Yes, I'm serious.
No way.
This is why they wanted to patent it and turn it into a probiotic.
So we could all be like Michael Phelps.
That's what I'm saying.
Just like dump our lactic acid levels.
For the listeners at home, I want you to see Michael Phelps right now. Okay. Not the 45-year-old father of 4. So exercise variety, though, that's the key,
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And I think people notice this, that like, if you don't switch it up, then you sort of plateau.
Yeah.
So you got to switch it up.
Yeah.
All right. And then I think the last thing to touch on real quick, I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, no, let's do it, man.
Is, again, these are like the high level things that you can do without even lifting a fork that can improve your gut health. I sincerely believe that we have a loneliness epidemic, that people, although they are on social media, they are more disconnected than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And we are inherently social creatures. And it actually comes, we've been talking a little bit about our evolutionary origins today, right? So let's think about this. If we went back to those primal times, your tribe is literally your source of survival. You face threats of many varieties. Maybe another tribe, maybe an animal, whatever, a storm, whatever it may be, or famine, access to food. The tribe protects you. There's support in numbers. And we became dependent on each other. These were not fleeting relationships. This wasn't a like or a swipe. This was literally like, if we are attacked, I will fight for you and you will fight for me, right? Those are true bonds. They weren't thousands of people. It was a limited group. It was your family.
Yeah.
And then it was the other families that were a part of your tribe, right? Like when we were taking our trip over to the Mediterranean, we became a tribe on that plane.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but like literally, like this is the way it worked, is that we have those, we are hardwired to require those social bonds of support to feel safety. If you don't have those social bonds of support, you don't feel safe. And the absence of safety leads people to feel anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we're living through right now. And I think that it's more important than ever for us to acknowledge and to like, so the average adult spends 6 hours a day on devices. The average kid, or poor kids, 7 hours. We have to put it down.
Yeah.
Like dinner time, sit across from people, have a conversation, make eye contact, right? And like form those real legitimate bonds. So I think it's like really important to have those social connections, because that actually, the way it works, I know you can appreciate this, but for your listeners, is that it shifts us from a fear, fight, or flight state, which is the sympathetic overdrive, sympathetic nervous system being in overdrive. It shifts us from that to actually allows us to get into a parasympathetic state, a vagal state, which is rest and recovery, which is what actually our gut microbes need.
Absolutely.
That sympathetic drive destroys our microbiome. That's why when people get nervous, they get the shits.
Yeah.
Right? Like when people get nervous, they get nausea and they feel it in their gut. Right? The sympathetic overdrive destroys the gut. The parasympathetic nervous system, when activated, restores the gut. So we have to shift that back over. And along these same lines, I also sincerely believe that like we need to re-acknowledge our spiritual purpose. Like I sincerely believe this. So, and it's actually been very important in my life, where I spent most of my life totally ignoring it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, you and I were talking before the show, so your listeners weren't there for this, but we were talking about having kids.
Yeah.
I have 4.
Yeah.
You have an 8-month-old. And I was talking about how like the birth of my oldest daughter changed my life and helped me to understand so many things.
Yeah.
And one of the things for me is, this is just being totally honest, is like people, I'm not telling you what to believe, but what I am telling you is that there's a place that exists in your heart that needs to be satisfied. And that's not a human connection thing. It's a spiritual connection thing. It's plugging into your purpose and seeing the world through the view of a higher power. And when my daughter was born, it's like, this is not just like a series of cells. This is not just genetic programming, right? This is like, it's not that simple. There was a breath of life that came into this person, and she has a soul and an identity, and she's unique, special. And where did that come from? Right? And I think that like those are questions that we should all be asking, whether you have kids or not, and thinking about these things, because at least for me in my life, I am so much happier and so much more satisfied by so much, and also more resilient, more capable of dealing with noise and distractions, because I've resolved this aspect of my life. And I'm still working on it a lot.
Yeah, of course.
But,
yeah.
So anyway, so I think like it's important for people, your listeners, to hear that this is not just a food thing.
Yeah, 100%. It's not just, but I'm so glad we're talking about this subject matter beyond the fork, because, 9-10 months ago, I wouldn't have understood what you just said. about the spiritual connection and the importance of purpose. And obviously, I know the studies and looking at loneliness and how this is, as damaging as smoking and how it's pro-inflammatory, etc. But like, there's a difference when you start creating your own tribe. And I think kids is one way of connecting with a higher purpose. There are multiple other ways. Faith is super important. And I think as conventionally trained doctors having this conversation, I think this should be really, really empowering for people to recognize as well, because as people of science, we appreciate like what we can prove in this day and age, but there's also an appreciation for the wider aspect of living that we will never be able to prove, but we feel.
Oh, 100%. And how much do you think that we've actually proven?
Oh,
I'm
100%.
curious.
Yeah.
Like seriously,
I mean,
out of all of the knowledge that exists, how much do you think we actually know right now?
oh no,
Way less than
we're talking
1%.
less than 1%,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, it's
exactly.
less than 1%. That's in absolute terms.
I mean,
yeah.
even in medicine, like we're so sometimes arrogant,
Oh
honestly,
yeah,
that we think we got it all figured out.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
you step back and you're like, we don't even understand the basics of like microbiology.
Yeah.
Let
The
alone
basics.
right, the basics. Like
Yeah,
we're like looking at big organs and like, hey, we got it all figured out. We
yeah,
can diagnose cirrhosis.
yeah,
And it's like, no. Like we
yeah,
need to be able to see things on a microscopic level because
yeah,
that's where things are occurring.
yeah,
Right. And this brings it back to inflammation. Like
yeah.
that inflammation, that chronic inflammation that's present in that person is going to predate that cirrhosis is
Mm,
absolutely the result of inflammation.
mm,
You don't get cirrhosis without inflammation.
mm.
And that inflammation is predating the manifestation of disease by decades. And if we could see that, diagnose it, we have an opportunity to
Yeah,
do something huge.
absolutely. Well, your book, I can't wait for it to come out. So it's coming out in January. Tell folks about it.
Yeah, so we got through all of this, and I didn't even say. Maybe you'll have to edit this and put it in the very beginning.
I mean, it's going to go in the
Yeah,
intro.
yeah. All right. So we got through all of this, and I literally haven't had a chance to talk about my book until now.
Yeah.
This is the first podcast where I've been able to talk about my book.
Super privileged, man.
And the book is actually called Plant Powered Plus. And plant powered because these are the plant powered diets. Like to me, plant powered is a new way of eating that welcomes and includes so many different people and so many different approaches to eating. They all have a seat at the table with me. But the plus is the fact that there's opportunities for healing that exist in our circadian biology, in creating patterns like of consistency, in timing of meals, in sleep. The plus is that we have opportunities to heal through social connections, through spiritual connection. The plus is that there are people who we didn't even get to talk about this, that trauma is a driving factor.
Yeah.
And the thing that I get excited about, Rupi, is that there will be people that will read my book, and like for different people, it's different things. And for some people, that's what they actually need to hear. And it will change everything for them. And I'm not the person who treats you for that, but I am the person who can help you to understand that. And then you can change and address those issues.
Yeah.
And and there's a supplement chapter, of course.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
a meal plan and
Nice.
an entire 3-phase plan. I shouldn't even say meal plan because it's really a 3-phase plan that is holistic. And it's not just about what you eat. It's all these things that we're discussing.
Amazing. Dude, I can't wait for it. You better be sending me a copy. And 38 Terra, can people get that in the UK now? Is that globally available, or are you still working on that?
So 38 Terra, we launched in January of 24. Okay, let me answer the question and then I'll tell you the story.
Okay, go on.
Yeah,
Then. Yeah, go on.
The answer to the question is we're not available in the UK. We probably will not be available in the UK when this episode airs, but we will be available in UK. My expectation is by the end of the year.
Okay.
I'm sure people can appreciate there's complexity
The tariff situation.
Well, it's not so much the tariff situation. It's more so just moving into other countries and sort of wiggling through the different regulatory processes that exist.
Gotcha.
So different countries have different sort of rules of how
Gotcha.
things work.
So
It's not uniformly the same. So like
Gotcha.
we've had an even bigger issue with Canada.
right.
Canada is
Really?
like so hard. Oh,
Oh
it's
my
so
gosh.
hard.
Oh.
It has nothing to do with our product.
Uh-huh.
It's literally just red tape that you're trying to
Gotcha.
move through.
Okay.
So, but the funny story is that 38 Terra launched in January of 24.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we're about a year and a half in,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know I have no sponsors. It's actually a beautiful thing. I love it. Like I
Uh-huh.
have there's no outside money.
Uh-huh.
It's literally just me and I have one business partner,
Uh-huh.
Simon Hill.
Simon Hill, yeah.
And like basically like we decide like this is why we can like spend a ridiculous amount of money on third-party testing because we're like we decided we want to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? All right. We didn't know if there would be any enthusiasm or interest at all. And we are funding this ourselves. I have to ask my wife for permission to do it. And so we buy what we think is enough product. And we basically like set up a website and we're like, yo, wherever you are in the world, it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
If you're willing to pay the shipping fees, we'll ship it to you, baby.
Okay.
Right? And we launch on January 15th of 24. And the problem is, this is a good problem, is that I went on the Diary of a CEO right before this.
Yeah.
And like Steven was kind enough to make me his January 1st.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Health transformation episode. So it blows up. And now we got all these people in the UK that want 38 Terra. And like they're clicking and sending. And the problem is what I didn't know, this is me not understanding the business side until this happened, that it gets shipped. And the minute it leaves the United States, I have no clue where it is. And so people are like, it's been 3 weeks. Where is it?
Oh my gosh.
It like literally is working through customs and it'll be there, hopefully really soon. But it got to a point where I was like, okay, I can like definitely sell this product into Canada and the UK. I know that there are people there who want this product.
Yeah.
But it's not fair to them that they get a substandard experience.
Sure.
So I made the decision to shut it down. And because the way I see it, we have a phenomenal product. Let's not take a phenomenal product and give people a substandard experience with that product. So we're working and we're going to be launching into the UK and the EU by the end of the year. I can't say when we're going to be in Canada. We've been working on it with a consultant for 18 months and it continues to be a challenge, but I'm hoping soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've got no financial affiliation with this supplement whatsoever, but I can say I wholeheartedly trust and respect the transparency that you've given to this supplement. The fact that you're going above and beyond to do this extra testing, I think that's a marker of a very, very good company. And so when it's available, you let me know, and I'd love to inform my audience and my community about it because I feel that it's going to be valuable for certain folks who are interested in it, and it could be, life-changing for a lot of people. I know how much effort you put into this. I respect both you and Simon as well. I was chatting to Simon yesterday, so I'm excited for you to get this into the UK and the EU as well, man.
The other thing that we do, I probably should not be saying this, but I will anyway. So we believe in like being as honest as possible. And we want people to get results.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at the reviews on our website, they're incredible. Why? Because people get results. But that doesn't mean that everyone gets results.
Sure.
So basically what we did is we set it up where if during the first 30 days, this is not for you, just tell us. We'll give you your money back.
Yeah.
And like that to me is a level of honesty that anyone who's anti-supplement, I'm just like, look, if it works and it helps people, you got no argument. And if it doesn't help people, I'll give them their money back.
Yeah. Amazing. Love you, man. This has been one of my favorite episodes. I can say that wholeheartedly. And it's just such a pleasure to get to do this in person as well. We're in the same part of the world because the last time we did this was virtual. And I remember I had to cancel because I had my Indian wedding and you were like so understanding about it. And I just knew you were a good guy. I just love your work online and I love what you're doing and what you bring to the world, man. So massive respect.
I feel the same way. This has been a lot of fun. I think the listeners will hear that. And I thank you so much for coming over to the States, and I hope to see you more over here, and I hope to also see you over in the UK.
Definitely, man.
Yeah, brother.
That was awesome. That was so much fun. If you loved that episode, you will love the full library of podcasts from the Doctor's Kitchen Library. We talk about everything from inflammation, supplements, and food as medicine. Just like this episode right here. You can click it right now and check it out.